Who's that? Is that Dennis?
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
I'm well. Yourself?
Well, I'm home in quarantine. I got in contact with somebody that was in contact with somebody who was positive for COVID. So
Okay.
I'm in a bit of a quarantine, as they say. So I'm not doing the best.
Yeah, that's that's unfortunate. Yeah, we had our town supervisor here in Saugerties test positive.
Yeah, how's Fred doing anyway?
He seems to be well. He's Fred, he'll hang in there.
Yeah, I owe him a call. On a number of different things, but I owe him a call.
Yeah. No, we're getting by. I'm just making sure. I have your presentation ready if that's the one you want to give, the last one that you gave in in PowerPoint format.
Yeah, I've got one. Jeannie asked me to shorten one, so I think I can share my screen and get this up. You want to try that or not? I guess.
Yeah, I mean, here comes somebody now. I can I can certainly host it if I go to PowerPoint. I just got to remember how to do this, like that. And then,
But if you ask me to share, I can. If I can share my screen, does it say share content?
yeah, I can let you
Share.
do that. Sure. Let me right click. Um, well, try hitting the share button. There you go.
Yeah,
You're
we got it.
sharing content. So yeah, you're welcome to do it. Run your show.
Does that? Can you see it now or not?
Yeah, I see your I see picture version Ulster County under your downloads.
No, can you see the? Can you? What can you see on your screen right now? Because I've
Well,
got it up.
all I see is your download folder. There you go. Now you're no,
Well,
no,
can you?
you,
Can't.
now you got to share. You get a choice of sharing what window you want to share.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to figure it out. So, yeah.
So when you hit share, it should bring up all the open applications in Windows for you there.
Let me stop sharing and see if that works. I don't know.
Oh my God, we're on.
Hey, hey, Jeannie.
The three of us are the only ones. But yes,
Jeannie.
like me to do. Stop the video.
So
Video's off. Thank you.
I don't know, Kevin. I can't seem to.
All right, here. Let's see how it looks from my end if I do it. All right, so we'll stop sharing. Okay, so if I share my content here.
Is that the most recent one? No, that's my question.
Yeah, this is the one I just downloaded. So can you see that?
Not yet. No. Now it's up. Yeah.
All right, so that's the slide number 2, back to 1.
Just can you just flip through? I just want to make sure it's the most recent one because Jeannie asked me to cut it down, so I did.
Yeah, this is the shortened one, I believe.
Okay, it's like 36 slides, I think it should be.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and it's a focus on Viewshed. Okay, that's the right one. I appreciate it if you do that for me, Kevin.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
I will stop sharing now. Just back to ground zero here. All right, and I see a Brian. Oh, Brian.
Hello, how are you doing?
Good. Yourself? Can I
Good.
get your last name, Brian?
Mason.
Mason?
That's correct.
Great. All right.
I'm with Saugerties Fire Department.
Okay.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for joining.
No problem.
And we have an E right. Are you there? E right at CSCOS. You can't seem to hear me. Okay. Anybody recognize Mr. E Wright?
Yeah, it's Ed Wright. Yeah.
Ed Wright. He's from your team, Dennis.
Yeah, he's with the CNS Engineering. Thanks, Ed, for joining. Appreciate it.
Jim Dickens will be on too, and Eric's planning to if he can. He's traveling.
Yeah, he said he was going to try.
We don't have the echo from your speaker at work, Dennis, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, the camera angle is a bit horrific, but that's beside the point.
Yeah. No, I know. I got that too. I got my cats in the background. I'm sure they'll make an appearance later. Here's Patty, I believe. Hey, Patty. We have someone coming up at SPET. Could you
That's
identify yourself?
Steve Peterson.
Steve Peterson, thank you.
He's with the Emergency Management Services. Hi, Steve.
Hey, Dennis. Hi, Kevin.
Hello, hello.
Kevin, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
Kevin, can you hear me? It's Jeannie.
Yep, I hear you.
Good. I will mute again.
Okay, good. A quick look. I forewarned Jeannie that everybody would be ruthlessly muted. Hello, Dan. Dan's got a blurry background. And James Dickens. Is he familiar to people? Do we know who he is?
Yeah, he's with CNS Engineers. He's one of our consultant team.
Got it.
Hi, James. How are you?
Good. How's it going?
We're good.
Hello, Dan and Patty
Hi,
and everyone
Jeannie.
else.
How you doing, Jeannie?
Hi, Dan.
Any way of knowing how many attendees at the public hearing we have?
Not until they show up.
Now we have Lisa. Hello, Lisa.
Hi, everyone. It's Lisa from Diaz Ambulance.
From which ambulance? Diaz?
Diaz, yes.
Yep. Chief Jim Mullen.
You also have Chief Christopher Murphy from Malden West Camp Fire Company.
Okay. And I see a Chris.
That's the Chief of Malden West.
George
Camp.
Redder.
Chris is George Redder.
Yes.
I see you. Well, I see two Chris's here. One with a capital C and one without. Is that both of you?
The Chris with the capital C is the Chief of Malden West Camp.
Okay. What's the chief's name? Last name?
Murphy.
Thank you. Goody. And Chief Jim Mullen is at Centerville. I don't see the whole thing.
Yes, Centerville.
Okay, Lisa's with Diaz, and we have a phone dial-in caller with a number ending in 28. Who would that be?
George Redder.
Oh, that's you, George. Okay, thanks. Possibly added, it looks like. Everybody. Hey, Holly.
Hello.
I'm sorry. I had a Chris with a capital C is Chris Murphy, and the other Chris is
That's probably me, Chris Wade.
Chris Wade.
Yeah.
WADE.
Yes.
And you are with
Saugerties, the Village Fire Department.
Thank you. Margarita. See. How the calls come in where they can't get on. Hang on. I'll mute myself. Oh, that was Joe Mayone. Maybe a second. Who have we added? We have a Mike Sasso and a Pamela M. Do we recognize those names? I think Margarita was a member of the public.
She lives over by the site.
Right. How about Pamela and Mike Sasso?
Mike Sasso is the fire chief in Glasgow.
And Pamela M, do we know? Public individual. Anthony Kordich. You going to introduce yourself?
How you doing? I'm Anthony Kordich. I reside at 66 Church Road, so I'm here for this zoning board meeting about the tower.
Welcome.
Yep. And we have Mike Avina. Welcome, Mike. And I see a phone number ending in, where'd it go? 38?
That's me, Joe Mayone.
You made it, Joe. Great. And a number ending in 68. Could you identify yourself?
Yeah, this is Eric Kana with CNS Engineers.
What's your last name, Eric?
Kana, Kenna.
Got it. And you CNS.
Yep.
Got it. All right. Aiden Hughes.
Yes.
Are you affiliated with anyone or a member of the public?
A member of the public, member of the Saugerties Fire Department.
Got it.
Welcome, Aiden.
Henry.
You answer it. Here.
Sorry, mute you there, Jeannie.
Sorry, it's Henry Roar calling.
Is he okay? Can he get in?
We will see. Ken is taking care of it.
All right, so we got Chris. It looks like I've got everybody.
Hi, Mike.
More or less. Hey, Michael.
Hi, Kevin.
Hey. I see Bill Harrison. Have your name down. Bill, could you identify yourself? Sorry, you're muted, Bill. Oh, sorry, I was trying to unmute you at the same time. You're back to mute. All right. Hey, Bill. Oh, you have a bad connection. Not very well. There's something wrong off with your mic or something. James. Yeah, if you could drop me something in the chat, but you are having audio problems, I believe. James Dickens. Greetings.
Yes, how's it going?
Good. Yourself?
Not too bad.
Are you here on behalf of yourself, your neighborhood, your?
I'm with CNS Engineers.
Perfect.
So Jeannie, the only person we're missing is Henry right now, right? I see the rest of the board is here.
Correct.
Okay.
And Henry is on the phone with Ken to try and get on. Henry is a member of the zoning board, so we need him.
Somebody came in. I see a couple of new names. Alan Bryan, Andy Turco-Levin.
Good.
Yes.
Yes. I'm just listening in.
Jeannie, since we have a quorum, Jeannie, if he's not on in the next minute or so, can we start the meeting and then he can join when he gets in?
Yes, we can. But I'm going to wait 1 minute or maybe two.
Okay.
To have a quorum, but I like a full board if we can have it. It is important for everyone. One more minute, Henry. Kevin, you will tell me if Henry appears, right? Whoops, Kevin seems to be muted.
You're right. I muted myself. I was eating
Yes,
as a
you
cat.
did. We locked ours out.
Yeah, I just heard somebody arrive. Hang on, let me see. Well, I'll ask. Henry, are you there? Are you at a phone number ending in 26? Henry, are you there? Guess not.
Okay, I did hear from a couple of members of the zoning board that they were having trouble with their internet, which is why they are here by phone. So it may be that Henry is also having trouble. However, we do have a quorum. So we are going to start and hope that Henry joins us. And I'm going to say good evening. Welcome to the December 7th, 2020 meeting of the Town of Saugerties Zoning Board of Appeals. I would now like to ask ZBA Secretary Kevin Freeman, who is graciously hosting this meeting, to make any necessary announcements.
Oh, thanks, Jeannie. Just so you know, I'm going to hit now the mute all button. It's going to take everybody's mic off. We might not be aware of the ambient sounds or the scratching in the background of animals or pens and such. But I'm going to mute all. Jeannie, unmute yourself. Everybody can unmute themselves as they're called on or as they see fit from the board. If you're on a phone, you can use *6 to unmute yourself. But I'm going to do that right now, just so you're all aware. And then Jeannie will unmute yourself. All right. Jeannie, unmute yourself.
Is that better?
Yep.
I now call the December 7th meeting of the Saugerties Zoning Board of Appeals to order. I am going to begin with a roll call of the members of the zoning board. I am Jeannie Goldberg. I am chairperson of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Also present are Patty Kelly.
Here.
Who is vice chairperson. Tim Scott.
Hello.
Who is here. Joe Mayone. Hello, Joe. Joe has not unmuted himself, but he was here a minute ago. And Holly Strutt is our
Joe's
alternate.
here.
Hi, Joe.
Hello.
And
All right.
Holly is here. We are missing Henry Rua, who will be here soon. I have faith. The quorum for this meeting is 3. We have more than 3, so I am going to announce that we do have a quorum and we can begin the meeting. The only item on tonight's agenda is a public safety radio tower to be constructed, proposed to be constructed at 35 Quarry Road in Saugerties. This will be presented by Dennis Doyle, Director of the Ulster County Planning Department. I want to add that this is not the usual appellate function of the zoning board, but is original jurisdiction under section 245-38, Public Projects and Improvements of the Town of Saugerties zoning law. This is a proposal of the County of Ulster to construct a 180-foot public safety radio tower at 35 Quarry Road in Saugerties. The property is located in the town of Saugerties, but is owned by the County of Ulster. The county is seeking from the ZBA for this a determination for this facility under the Monroe Balance of Public Interest test to determine whether or not it is immune from the town of Saugerties zoning law. This is a public hearing. We are going to begin with a presentation by Mr. Dennis Doyle, who is Director of the Ulster County Planning Department, and his colleagues. During his presentation, I would ask that only members of the zoning board and their consultants may ask questions or make comments. Following this, it will be open to the public. This is a public hearing. We wish to hear from all the public. However, I am going to state that we do not want this meeting to go on past 2.5 hours, please. So I would ask everyone, please do not repeat things. If you agree with somebody who has said something before, please state that so that we can keep it to 2.5 hours. After that, I think everyone gets tired and we're not as effective. I will interrupt this to say welcome to Henry Rua, the 5th member of our zoning board who has just appeared. Hello, Henry. You have to unmute yourself in order to be heard.
Finally got on with the help of your husband.
Yes. My husband is my technical expert. Thank you.
Kevin, when I hit join, it would not do anything. It's wanted my email address, it wanted this, it wanted that. But anyway, Ken got it straightened out for me.
Good. When we welcome you, and you are more than a quorum now. I'm going to now turn the meeting over to Mr. Doyle, who is going to make a presentation of what the county proposes to do at 35 Quarry Road. Mr. Doyle.
Jeannie, can I just ask a question? Is this presentation, since we did the project presentation at the last meeting, is this presentation going to be about the specific new information from the drone that we had talked about at the last meeting?
Let's ask Mr. Doyle that after
Okay.
he unmutes himself.
So since it is a public hearing, we wanted to give the public a bit more detail than just the new information, but it includes the new information, particularly relative to the leaf on versus leaf off drone imagery. And they're presented side by side, and only those areas that essentially where we found visibility are presented. So it's shorter, and we can run through the first half of the presentation relatively rapidly.
Okay. Go for it.
So if Kevin could bring up, Kevin is going to share the file and run the slides for me. If Kevin could bring up the presentation, I would appreciate that. So can everybody see the screen? Kevin, can you enlarge that any or not? Did we lose? So if not, why don't we start, Kevin? So this is basically an introductory slide. Shows the overall location of the project on 35 Quarry Road, the site boundaries associated with the site. Just a general sense of where the site is on 35 Quarry Road. It's a former tire dump. Can I get the next slide, Kevin? We're going to take you briefly through, that's fine, the need, environment, design, and build. It's basically the approval process. We'll focus tonight on the environment. We wanted to have a little bit of a discussion on the need. Next slide, Kevin. So the project need is related to a problem that the county has with its existing radio system. It's a rebroadcast system, and it's analog, and it's not really suited well for where the communication needs of the county and the fire departments and emergency first responders. So the solution has been to essentially to move to a simulcast system. The simulcast system is going to require additional towers throughout the county. There's at least 2 other towers that we're looking at in order to make the system work. And we identified the area in Saugerties in and around the 35 Quarry Road site as a critical coverage gap. And so that's why this tower is being proposed in the location it's being proposed at. Next slide, Kevin. So this is the area around 35 Quarry Road. The gray areas show the coverage areas, and that yellow circle is in and around the 32 quarter in the village of Saugerties. And the next slide will show you how this is without the 35 Quarry Road tower. Next slide will show you how that coverage fills in when we add this tower site. You can see it removes a significant coverage gap in and around critical areas in the community, and that's precisely why it's proposed in this location. Next slide, Kevin. You can toggle that. I think you're going the wrong way, Kevin. So I just want to give you an analysis of what we've done. We've completed our historic and archaeological work. We have an FAA sign off for the tower. We also have a SHPO sign off for the tower. We have a preliminary site plan. We've done our geotechnical analysis. We've taken a look at the structural tower needs. But tonight's will focus on the view shed analysis and some of the photo simulations that we've done. Next slide, Kevin. So just to give you a context, the tower sits in a bowl. It's surrounded by higher elevations on all sides except to the south. These ridges and vegetation provide some effective screening for the tower's lower sections. In many instances will block views of the tower completely during leaf on, and some of our drone flights will show that. The surrounding character of the site is low density residential with mixed commercial and highway businesses to the south. Next slide, Kevin. So this is a view shed map. We've done some tweaking of this map to make it a little clearer of what the view sheds are. This view shed is based on topography alone, and you can see the legend on the side where the areas where the potential tower would be visible based on topography. We've also mapped the historic properties in the town of Saugerties. These are properties that are on the National Register. They're shown in red. In addition, the board asked us to take a look at the 2005 historic resource study for the Saugerties. We've done that, and we've mapped out those areas that are listed as historic resources. And you can see that the rings around are 1 mile each, so that the first ring is 1 mile, the second ring is 2 miles. There's some existing tower sites just south of the label that's Route 32 is the Mount Airy Tower. There are other tower sites that are just off this map to the north. And then just to understand that the red sites are the ones that are eligible for listing on the National Register. Next slide, Kevin. So at the request of the consultant, what we did is we went back and we added in vegetation, a calculation for vegetation on a view shed analysis. It's a little bit difficult to read, I know, but the reason it's not on a regular map is we have to understand where the vegetation is in order to add it in. And the red areas represent, we've added in 40 feet of vegetative height to the various areas in and around the tower, and it shows that a lot of that view shed disappears when you start adding in the vegetation. And the area in and around the tower site itself remains visible with the vegetation there. And so we further refine that by looking at that area with drones, and you can see a zoom in of that just on the bottom left-hand corner of that area that shows where the tower site is, and the area in red, which is potential for visibility based on a strict view shed analysis with topography and vegetation. Next slide. This is a quick slide just to show you the tower site and the ridge lines around it. It also shows the home sites to the east, to the west of the site, and a little bit of the home sites. You can't see them quite as well in this picture because of the angle, but you can see them later to the east of the site. Next slide, Kevin. So what we did here is we took a look at the drone sites, and this is a summary of what you're going to see later. This takes a look at the properties and the visibility based on the drone footages and pictures that we're going to show you. The areas in purple are areas that are part of the 2005 historic resources study. We've labeled them as they're labeled, at least as we think they're labeled in the in the 2005 summary. We provided the numbers for you. So number 17, number 18, and number 28. These sites, except for number 28, number 17 and number 18 are not visible either with leaf on or leaf off from what we can tell from the drone photos. The the green dots represent areas where the tower is visible only during leaf off conditions. And the red dots represent areas where the tower is visible both leaf on and leaf off. They're the most critical areas to be concerned about. Any questions? Next slide, Kevin. So what we're going to try to do here is give you, note the date up here, the date up on these photos. This is a drone photo shot from 180 feet. All right. And it'll give you the direction, it'll give you the date of the photo. And what we tried to do, remember the last time we presented this, we gave you photos that essentially looked at what we were in fall foliage. We then took these pictures again in nearly leaf off conditions on the 17th of November, so that you'll get a comparison between these shots. They're not directly lined up, but they're close enough that you can see the comparison. So this is a shot looking directly southeast at 180 foot. The picture was taken on the 6th of November. Next slide, Kevin. This is the similar view looking south.
Dennis, where is the tower? Where is the tower that we're looking at?
The tower is actually under the drone, so you can't see it.
Well, then then we don't know really what we're looking at if we don't know where the tower is.
Well, you'd know where the tower is. The tower, you're looking out directly from the tower to the area around it. The drone is flowing right over the tower site. So you're looking directly out from the area where the tower would be to the area surrounding it. Again, looking south, you can see the area, and I've blown it up on the bottom corner. You can see that area, and there's some photo simulations of this area that you can see. This is the area where you first come in off of Route 32 into the site, and also an area that is a former, I think it used to be the Blue Ridge Tavern or the Blue Stone Tavern, right off of 32. And we have some folks.
It's called the Blue Flame.
Blue Flame. I'm sorry.
Dennis, to give him an exact, the drone is right, basically the drone is the top of the tower, exactly where the tower is.
That's correct.
You're sitting at the top of the tower looking out.
That's correct.
So the tower is up where it says viewing Kevin Freeman app way up here in the sky?
No. Think of it as being, as you're standing on a fire tower and you're looking and you're taking a camera and you're looking out in the distance from that camera, and that the drone is perched at 180 feet, which is the tower height. So you're right at the site of the tower, looking out.
The theory they're presenting is that if you can see what you can see from the top of the tower indicates what will be able to see you.
Is that what you're saying? Is that if we can see those people, those houses could see the tower?
That's correct.
Okay, so this is many more houses than we saw with the leaf on.
I would not indicate that, but if you think that's the case, that's fine. It's just a more open view, and there's not houses. Those are businesses' locations.
Businesses or houses. Okay. Where's Stay Road? If I'm looking at this picture, where is Stay Road?
Stay Road is off the screen to your right, and we'll move around to that.
Okay, where's Church Road on this?
Church Road is on your left. You can see bits and pieces of Church Road, and we'll move around and we'll get those as well.
Okay.
Next slide. Any other questions? Next slide, Kevin. So that here again, now we're looking south. Southwest. This is the area where the church would be, the Quarryville Church would be, and you can also pick up a little bit of Stay Road in that location. And again, this picture was taken on the 6th. And then the next slide, Kevin. And this picture gives you a sense of where the church would be. It's right almost dead smack in the middle of your picture. You can see that you can't see the church from this area. And then you can see bits and pieces of houses off on Stay Road in the distance on the right side. Next slide, Kevin. Now we're almost facing right directly west into Stay Road. And again, this picture was taken on the 6th. Next slide, Kevin. This reveals additional houses that you can see with leaf off versus leaf on. You can see more of that one house that you only saw the roof of. You can see the backyard of that house through the trees. And then on the other side, that's a zoom in on the bottom. On the other side, you can see on the far right of your screen, you can see there's a house in there that has a garage and a barn. You can see them just through the trees as well. Any questions?
Yeah, I know you asked me. Hello, this is Anthony Cordage. I know you asked me not to speak yet, but you showed Church Road, but you cut my house off, which is 840 feet from it, which I have pictures from here that I'm going to be able to see 95% of the tower. This is the second time that you've misled people of this. You keep talking about the Bluestone, which is over half mile away, but the most important ones are the houses that are 840 feet. You got my neighbors in that shot, but you did not get my house. You cut it off on my house. And I am the closest one there. And I really have an issue with this, and we're going to talk about this later on tonight. But I want you to explain how come all your pictures cut off the closest house that is going to be affected the most by this.
So if you give me a little bit more time, Mr. Cordich will come right around and focus on the end of Church Road and the houses on the end of Church Road. And I appreciate that comment. Any other questions on this slide?
From the ZBA.
Next slide, Kevin. So this is looking into almost at the end of Church Road, and this is with the picture was taken on the 6th, and you can see Mr. Cordich's house. It's the White House, almost smack dab in the middle of your screen. And then the next slide, Kevin. And this will give you a leaf off condition. You can see that some houses in the distance. If you remember that first slide that we put up in terms of visibility, there are about 5 or 6 properties that are visible on this. All of them are partially screened by vegetation as you move further away from the site. Mr. Cordich's house, and there's a trailer in there as well that are not screened from a vegetative standpoint. Any questions on this slide? Next slide.
My question is, you say that they're partially screened. It's hard to imagine that anybody in those houses would not be able to see the tower with these leaves off.
Well, they would be partially screened. You're not, when I say partially screened, I mean exactly that. Looking through vegetation is, whether it has leaf on or leaf off is a partial screen.
Okay, so here
can they see the tower? Yes.
Yeah, they can see the tower. They may not see the bottom of the tower, but they'll see the bulk of the tower.
Well, they'll see bits and pieces of the tower because the vegetation will block it. Understand what ends up happening is you're looking at it from a standpoint of when we look down into something, you're looking at it through in terms of the largest object behind it. When you look up, the larger objects, the trees, et cetera, are going to help block that view further from a close standpoint. The tower will be a discordant view in their view shed. No question about that. Next slide. So this is a zoom in. We've actually zoomed in. These pictures are very high resolution, so you can zoom in on them. I gave the board secretary links to these pictures so you could see them. But this is a zoom in on those areas so that you can get a sense of what's out there. It also in the bottom corner gives you the property locations that are there. You can see about 5 properties in here. Some of these are garages. They're not all residences. But you can see the residents that are visible. They're clearly visible in this shot, and you can also see how much even a little bit of leaf on as you move further away from the site. Further will block some of the views from those folks that are further to the east of Church Road. Next slide. Again, this is a leaf off situation, and you can see those further houses adjacent to the east of East Road come into greater visibility at this particular point in time. Any questions on these slides? Next slide, Kevin. This is looking directly south. Again, it's almost overlapping the view that we had before, but I wanted to take a look at the entrance to Church Road so you can get a sense that you can't see any of those structures as you enter into Church Road during this picture, which is on 11/6. Next slide, Kevin. This is again almost the same. We were moved just a little bit east of the first shot, but if you look almost to the center right, you can get a sense of that's the entrance into Church Road. And you can see even during this particular time, you can zoom in on this. You can just pick up some eaves of houses, but you can't pick up any real definition of any of the houses at the beginning of Church Road. So the major impacted properties as you move towards the end of Church Road. Next slide. This is a zoom into that area so you can get a sense of what I'm talking about. You can see some outlines of rooftops in that area. They may have some visibility of the tower from that particular area, but it'll be extremely limited. Moving to that into that beginning of Church Road. Any questions?
I have a question. Homes that you're looking at, how many of those homes can see the tower in total of the number of homes that are there? What percentage?
I didn't do a number of the homes, but the major percentage of towers of homes that can see the property with leaf on, I think are about eight total properties. Don't quote me on that. I have to go back to the slide. There are 5 properties or 5 structures that we can identify at the end of Church Road that can see the tower leaf on and leaf off.
Well, there's got to be more who can see it leaf off than leaf on, don't you think, Dennis?
There's a couple. There's not that many more. We can go back and look at them. There's some that you pick up on Stay Road. There's like 3 properties on Stay Road. I did do a slide that did that so you could see them. But they're back of the properties and they're not. You're not looking at a fully exposed tower like you're looking at the end of Church Road. Next slide. This just shows you where the photo simulations were done. We do have an added photo simulation at the end of Church Road. It's just in front of and Steve can correct me on this. It's just in front of the mobile home that's there. It's at the road level, which is not necessarily, which is about 20 feet lower than the houses that are visible from the site. We'll get to that visual simulation, but I just wanted to show you where these simulations were done from. Next slide. So this is a balloon. We flew balloons. This is a leaf on. This is a leaf on photo simulation. Everybody recognizes this. I now know it's the Blue Flame Tavern. This is taken from the side of Route 32 looking into the site. This shows the locations of the balloons that are circled. Next slide. And this shows the tower photo simulated into that location. These views will be passing because of the cars going by and the limited amount of area that you have to visualize the tower. So there'll be passing views except from actual people in the parking lot or in the building of the facility itself. Next slide. This is as you move immediately into the site. This is the first building you hit as you move into the site. We're standing just off Old Route 32, looking into the site. You can see the balloons in the circled area. Next slide. And this is a tower from that location. Any questions? So we did do a drone flight. We were actually able to run 2 drones up and set them at the necessary distances apart so that we could do a photo simulation at the end of Church Road. So the next thing I think you're going to see is that photo simulation at the end of Church Road. So if I get the next slide. So this is at the end of Church Road, and it's down in front of that mobile home facility that's in there. It's a little pull off at the end of Church Road. We did not want to trespass on anybody's property. This shows that 180-foot tower visible over that ridge line and into that area. As you move up, more of that tower would be visible, but you get a sense of scale in terms of what would be visible from this particular photo simulation. Any questions?
Did you do any photos further down Church Road to where the tower is not visible by any of the houses? I mean,
No, we did not, because we couldn't see
you have
couldn't see the
several people
drones.
here. Okay, you are several people here who live on Church Road and live on Stay Road, and they're interested, obviously, in can you see the tower from my house? That's what they're interested in. So what you're doing is showing us at the end of the road, but you're not giving us any real photographs of the homes, what it's like from their homes with leaf off. And I think that's kind of an important thing for them to have.
The
And for the zoning board to have.
The difficulty would be is you can't see the balloons and or the drones to take the picture to essentially do the visual simulation. If you can't see it, you can't simulate it.
Okay, so that's an issue. We'll talk about that obviously during the conversation, but I think that's something that's lacking, is that we don't have people's appreciation of whether or not they can or cannot see the tower because we don't have a balloon to focus on. All we have is a simulation from a drone, and that's not the same thing. You understand that? I know you do.
I do and I don't. I mean, my sense would be is that technology has changed significantly between flying balloons and flying drones. And you can literally look down. If you look at these pictures, you can literally look down and peer in people's windows into a certain extent with the high quality of these pictures that are taken. You can move right down and so if you can't see through the vegetation from the top of the tower looking down from a drone, it seems a realistic assumption to make that you won't be able to see it standing on the road, essentially trying to find the tower.
Well, your drone pictures showed many houses that had views of that
but not on the beginning of Church Road, which is what your question was.
As you move down closer to the site on Church Road, there are some houses there that you had shown in your
and that's where this photo simulation is taken from.
From how far back? How many houses back did you go?
It's if you go back and we can show you, if you look at where the pull off is on Church Road, and where it's pretty much right in front of a mobile home facility that sits in there. It's right in front of that individual's house.
Excuse me, this is not in front of my house, which is the next house down, which I can see clearly the balloons. I have pictures of the balloons they flew on July 17th. I spoke about this before at the October 20th meeting. I told them they were welcome to come up on my property and take the pictures and do a simulation. This is totally bogus what he's doing here.
So we did not want to trespass. I wasn't aware of the offer to access your property, but we did not want to trespass on your property to do the simulation. That's why we took the picture where it was.
Well, okay, if you had a drone, you could have thrown it up in the air.
Mr. Cordich?
Yes, I understand. I understand, but the best time to speak about the best time to speak to this is while he's addressing it, because
I understand that.
No, you don't, because you won't want to listen.
We do want to listen, but we also need the zoning board, who has to make the decisions, a chance to comment, please. That's all I'm asking. I understand, and when it is the public comment time, you can ask Mr. Doyle to go back to a specific slide to illustrate what you are talking about.
I apologize. I apologize for interrupting. I'll wait until the end. But this
understand.
This affects me the most.
I do understand this.
Okay. Ginny, can I ask Dennis a question?
Please.
Okay.
Is this Henry?
Dennis, Henry Rua.
Henry.
Yes.
Zoning board, yes. Please.
Yes. Dennis, the tower got a magnificent view of the houses. That's what you emphasized. And for you to say that the drone can see down to the houses, you're 100% correct. And in actuality, if the drone can see that, you can see. But you're talking about a very small vision that the drone is shooting down in the camera. I think the best reference that you possibly can give everyone and settle this whole thing is to do exactly what you did in these later photos. Go right to the site of each house if you have to, and put the simulation of the tower there, and they can see what the tower would look like from their house. That they can relate to. They can't relate to a balloon or a drone looking back at their house.
So I take what you're saying, but understand something, that when you look at the DEC guidelines for essentially measuring visual impact, they're not measured from essentially an individual properties. They're measured from sensitive sites and sites that have high visitation.
Well, then why did you do this, Dennis? Why
Because the board asked me, I think it's important to do it. I just don't think you have to do it for every house that's visible.
Well, don't you see where that's your biggest resistance right now?
Well, I get the fact that people don't want to see the tower, but I would also say to you that what we're trying to do is show a magnitude of impact. These photo simulations show a magnitude of impact. They're not that much difference depending upon where you go on the road. So if you look at the magnitude of impacts, you can get a sense from what you're going to see, both from the drone footages and from the photo simulations.
Dennis, I understand what you're saying, and I understand what DEC is saying, what's required. What I'm telling you is, as the zoning board representing the town and the residents of the town, you hear the complaints the same as I'm hearing the complaints. So for you, the planning board and the county, to do your due diligence and to satisfy us to make a educated decision on this, I don't think it would be too much of a request to do exactly what you've done in these last 4 or 5 photos. If it means going to the houses and trying to simulate that like you did from the Quarryville garage, looking at the tower, people can relate to that. Looking at it from the blue flame to the tower, people can relate to what that looks like, or what it would look like. Can't relate to a balloon up in the air, because you don't see the tower, you don't see the structure, you don't see anything. And all I'm trying to do is,
well, I guess my question, Henry, is, can you relate to the picture that's in front of you in terms of the project where it's going to be at the end of Church Road? That's a magnitude of impact that's similar and greater than any other house on Church Road.
That's what you're saying, but that's not what the gentleman
except for the end of Church Road. But I mean, I don't want to find myself in a situation where somebody thinks that they can see the tower, and I can't find a balloon and or a drone. I mean, if you're saying to me you want something at the end of the road with respect to Mr. Cordich's property, and he's willing to allow us to access that property, that's a different discussion. But this is where we went at the end of Church Road. It represents one of the worst places on Church Road where you can see the tower, and that's what you're going to see.
Okay, that's not. And what I said to you was the individual that just spoke, Mr. Cordich.
Well, that's not multiple houses. That's one additional house.
That's one additional house in this case here, but the other ones haven't spoken yet, Dennis. So my point being, it's not that hard for you guys to make the simulation on if the drone can see these houses so visible, so can the people. And if you put a simulation of the tower there versus a balloon, I think they can relate to it better. I mean, take that for what it's worth. I'm giving you my opinion, what the people want to see.
And Jeannie, can I just add one thing for Dennis? Dennis, this is Patty again. I just want to emphasize, and we have to keep it in our heads because, I mean, you're focused on the project and I understand that. This is a residential area. This is an area that the people that are on this call worked to clean up from a tire dump, the reckless people that went in there and destroyed that neighborhood. These are the same people who worked for years to get that area cleaned up. Their life savings are in their homes. And I think that as angry as they may get, they need the reassurance of knowing exactly what's going to happen in their area, in their neighborhood. This is their home. So, you know, talking about drones doesn't help. They want to see, when I look out my window, what am I going to see? And
there you
I
go,
know it's
Pat.
not required under DEC, but I think it's required for these people.
So let
My
me ask
personal opinion.
that question again from my perspective, looking at this, right? The drones give us a sense of what houses are visible, right? That's the first thing. And the second thing is that 7 months out of the year, there are not a lot of houses that are visible here. And remember, we're engaged in a balance of public interest test, right? Which has public safety ramifications associated with it. And I ask again, if I look at this picture, this is a magnitude of impact that you're seeing relative to the end of Church Road.
Okay. Do you have the same things for the people on Stay Road? You have that same
I
kind
don't,
of.
because if you look at Stay Road, a couple of things happen with respect to Stay Road. One is that there's the visuals with respect to Stay Road are not necessarily great as it relates going back to the east. Most of the visuals with respect to Stay Road and the view shed is important to the west. Whereas when we look at the discordant views from like Mr. Cordich's place and from Church Road, there's some significant views to the west that I would be concerned about. And that's why we did this visual simulation.
Okay, I'll leave it to the public to talk about this because there will be people on this call who worked on the tire dump issue for years, who could see the tire dump from their homes on Stay Road. So they'll talk to you better than I can about this. But I ask for you and your team to just consider the fact that this is a neighborhood of homes that people have cared for many years, and they're concerned. That's all I ask is for you to always remember that. The tower, and I understand what you're trying to do with it, is important, and we need to figure out a way that can happen, whether it's here or somewhere else. But equally important is the homes of these people that are on the call.
Well, and I couldn't agree more, which is why we essentially went up and did those drone flights.
Okay.
And why we did. I mean, we were on our fourth or fifth public meeting and our second public hearing.
Well, this is this is not, you were with other meetings with the zoning, not with the zoning board.
I understand that, but my point being is I think it's unfair. I think it is unfair to say that we're not concerned, because we are. And
I'm just asking you to consider that you may see that tower in one way. Somebody whose home is nearby is looking at that tower in a different perspective, and we're both looking at the same things, but you're seeing different things. That's all I'm asking you to consider as we talk about this.
Okay. Next slide, Kevin. So just quickly, this is an overview of the site plan. It shows the location of the tower. Shows the location of the tower in the back right-hand corner of the site. You can see it on the bottom with the arrow. Next slide, Kevin. This is a look at a blow up of the area in and around the tower site. It shows the location of the various facilities inside the tower compound, including the tower location, the shelter that houses the equipment, a generator, and a necessary LPN facility to fire the generator. Electric will be brought into that facility from the existing poles that are on site, and then moved underground into that facility at the location that was shown on the previous map. And that, I think, is next slide, Kevin. And I just wanted to give everyone a sense of what the balance of public interest test is. And these are the 9 things that are in front of the board to consider under the balance of the public interest test. And that's it. I'm done.
Can I be heard? Am I unmuted, Kevin?
Yes, you
Good.
are.
I had a question for Mr. Doyle. You said in your presentation that people could see part of the tower. We're talking about a 180-foot tower. What part of the tower are you talking about? They can see the top of the tower? They can see the base?
It depends on the location, Jeannie.
Exactly.
It depends on the location. Clearly, all the way at the end of Church Road, nearly all of the tower will be visible.
Correct.
They're at about there's an intervening ridge line that may block portions of the tower, but they're at the tower base elevations about 400 feet. The elevation of some of the houses up there around 420 feet, so they sit a little bit higher. There still should be some ridge lines in between that should block a portion of the tower base. As we move down Church Road, as you move towards the middle Church Road, probably little or no of the tower would be visible during leaf on, and only portions of the tower through the trees will be visible during leaf off.
That portion is what bothers me.
Well, the portion it's not, if you look at the elevation differences, the portion is not essentially a top or bottom of the tower. It's because bits and pieces of the tower are going to be blocked off. Think of this as a sort of looking through your next door neighbor's hedge and your next door neighbor's house. You can't see the whole house, but you know the house is there. Think of it that way. And then as you move further into Church Road, all the way towards the end, none of the tower is going to be visible, and most of that tower will not be visible for Church Road during leaf on.
But 6 months of the year is leaf off.
Well, I would say we took pictures in basically from April to almost November.
Well, you did a nice show from July.
Right. Well, that was a November. That was a November picture. There was still November 6th. There was still leaf on.
Yes, I know, but the first one you showed was from July.
In July, that's correct.
Yes.
But if you look at, well, I don't want to get into the debate on when leaves come on, but it's more than 6 months.
Yes. But or maybe less. It depends on the weather. Yeah.
Actually,
Okay.
It doesn't. To be honest with you, leaf on and leaf off is dependent upon the amount of light. That's what basically controls whether leaves come on and whether leaves comes off.
Correct.
We're light sensitive.
Right. Yes, I agree. But it also depends on the wind in the fall as to how fast the leaves go off. So there are variables. Let's not discuss the weather. Let's just discuss a tower.
But most of the time when you're outside and around is essentially in leaf on conditions. Other times you're in your house and you have to find a window to look out of to find the tower.
Okay, I don't think we want to tell people that for 6 months of the year they have to stay in their houses.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that if your outdoor activities are most prevalent and you'd be most cognizant of a view would be when you're outside and in and around your home. Correct.
Okay, may I go to the balloon test that you did? I'm not even sure when. You did a balloon test.
Yeah, it was in July.
In July. Did you send out notices either in the paper?
Yes.
Or how far in advance?
I don't know the exact time in advance. I think it was 7 days at least, but but we did send out notice. We did put a notice in the paper, and it was an advertisement. It wasn't a legal notice.
Okay, I saw an advertisement for the day of your public meeting for the planning board on the same day that you had your public meeting. Was it similar to that?
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't. It was ahead of time?
Yes.
Okay. And I also understand that if we asked you to do a balloon test now, We would not be guaranteed to have another lovely day like we had today, where the conditions might be good.
As you move further into the season, our consultants tell us that essentially winds and weather affect the ability essentially to conduct balloon tests and to make sure that you can get the appropriate separation distance.
I agree. It is difficult. That does not mean it doesn't happen. We will discuss this later. I do want to thank you for your slide of the balancing of interest test. This has been on the zoning board website, on the town of Saugerties website for at least a week, so that people have had a chance to see it. The 9 separate factors that we must consider. And the zoning board is in a very difficult position here. We understand the need, and we also understand the need of the residents. And we are trying to do what is best for everyone. And I said before, this property is owned, I believe the county of Ulster owns 22 acres, 22 plus acres on Quarry Road. Is that correct, Dennis?
Dennis, you're muted.
We own 2 properties on Quarry Road. One is this one, and then there's an adjoining property that immediately adjoins this to the north.
To the north.
Yeah, I don't know what the exact acreage is though, Jeannie, I'm sorry.
But it is about 22 acres.
If you say, I haven't checked.
I believe I read that somewhere. Okay, so we have county-owned property that is in the town of Saugerties. And that is why we have come to where we are. The Monroe decision. Mr. Schuster, I would like you at this point, if you could please, to just give us an understanding for everyone present of why the Monroe decision is important here.
Well, the Monroe decision refers to a court case some 30 years ago, which had to do with the specifics are not as relevant to this particular case, but they are somewhat similar, where a county was proposing to put an airport in the city of Rochester. And the question was, one level of government was proposing to use land in another level of government's jurisdiction. And the question was, which government controlled the zoning, and how did the intervening outside government have to comply with the home community zoning? And the decision that came out of that case, which happens to be called the Monroe decision because it was in Monroe County, came up with a number of tests to try and measure or come to a determination as to whether or not the particular proposed project was immune from the local host community's zoning. In other words, it did not have to, would it have to comply or not with that zoning? The 9 tests, I won't read them if people have had an opportunity. They relate to a variety of things, the need for the project, the nature of the benefits, whether there are other alternatives that have less significant impacts, and they have to be used to see which way the seesaw tilts to balance the interest and make that determination about the immunity to zoning or not. I have to say that it's interesting that that case, that's the Court of Appeals case, it's never been put into legislation with specific procedures and ground rules, and it's really left to each situation to determine which agency makes that decision and under what kind of a process. The revised Town of Saugerties zoning law in 2008 actually addressed that somewhat by specifically stating that in such situations where there are two governmental entities involved, with one coming in and the question arose as to whether they had to comply with the zoning law or not, it specifically said that the town's zoning board of appeals will make that Monroe determination, which brings us to why we're here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Mr. Schuster is the, am I on? Yes. Mr. Schuster is the planner who works with the Zoning Board of Appeals and advises us. Thank you. I have two quick questions, I hope, for Mr. Doyle or someone else on his team. The first one is, how many other public safety radio towers does Ulster County have? Where are they? And are they on land owned by Ulster County? Do any of them have commercial antennas on them, like cell towers?
Steve, can you answer that? Is Steve Peterson still on?
Where's Steve?
Yeah, I'm here, Dennis. Excuse me. Yes, thank you. We own tower sites at Kingston, Sam's Point,
Kingston. Okay.
Sam's Point, and
Yeah.
Cragsmore, and
Yeah.
Tonchi, which is the town of Olive.
Olive. Okay.
Okay. We lease
Thank you.
space. Excuse me. We lease space on Illinois Mountain and Highland, Overlook Mountain and Woodstock, and we have an agreement with Bel Air for communications at the summit on the top of Bel Air. As far as commercial, would you say commercial antennas?
Cell towers.
Is that your question? Okay. Yep. So Kingston has cell communication. Sam's Point has cell communication. And then we don't have cell communication on our leased tower sites. You're muted. I cannot hear you.
They were Illinois.
You were mute.
You're muted, Gene.
You're muting yourself out. I cannot hear you.
Okay. Is this better?
Much better. Yes, go ahead.
Good. Okay. The ones that are leased are Illinois. What else? I'm sorry.
That's
I can't
okay.
write that fast.
No problem. Illinois, which is
Yes.
in Highland, the town of Lloyd.
Yeah.
Overlook, which is in the town of Woodstock.
Yes.
And Bel Air with an agreement for communications ability at the summit.
Okay. So that sounds like it is a total of 6.
6, and then there's a lease, an agreement that we have for a tower site in Marlboro for dispatch communications only. But that's on a cell communications tower that is not owned by the county. Did you understand that? You're
Jeannie, we
muted.
can't hear you.
Very good. You're muted.
It comes and goes, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, and which ones have commercial cell tower antennas on them?
Okay. The Kingston Tower site has a cell communications antennas on it.
It's commercial.
Correct.
Okay.
Sam's Point has commercial cell communications on it.
Okay.
And that's it as far as the county is concerned.
Okay. So they are owned. Don't tell me I'm muted again.
No, we can hear you.
Good. They are owned by the county, but they have commercial antennas for Verizon or someone else similar?
That is correct.
Okay. But I understood Mr. Doyle to say, and I believe his words were, there are no plans at this point to put commercial antennas on.
And that is also correct.
But there's a great difference between there are no plans at present to put antennas on, and we will not put commercial antennas on.
Okay, and I believe that Mr. Doyle, when he spoke about that, said that it would be coming back to the zoning board if that was the case in the future by the cell company. And Mr. Doyle can speak to that as well.
Okay.
You're up, Dennis.
No, that's correct.
Which is correct.
That it would have to come back to you, and being the fact that commercial facilities wouldn't be allowed in the zone, you would have to issue a use variance. And I don't see how they would meet the test for a use variance.
The same way you are.
We aren't meeting a test for a use variance. We're meeting a balance of public interest test.
Yes, it's different. It is different.
You are different. You are correct, Dennis.
Yes. Okay, I have one more question, which probably needs to go to Steve again. And it may show my ignorance, but I'm going to do it anyway. What is the difference between a public safety radio tower and a commercial cell tower?
The commercial cell tower is going to have commercial cell companies located on it for transmission. Public safety is going to have radio communications required for public safety. So law enforcement, fire, EMS would be able to communicate from that tower site, as well as the county.
Jeannie, we can't hear you.
Does that mean that ownership is one difference? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I don't understand your question. Say it again.
Obviously, a commercial cell tower is owned by a private commercial company. The radio safety tower is not owned by a commercial tower or company. Is that part of the definition?
Yeah, that's not necessarily true. We have leased tower sites that are owned by tower companies that we lease as a public safety entity. We lease space on the tower site to be able to communicate.
So you got use variances for those when you?
Yeah, we have contracts. Yes, yep. We have contracts with the leasing company so that we.
No, that's not what I'm asking. When you went from just the county and you put the cell tower on the county tower, did they have to apply for a use variance?
Okay, I'm sorry. They were, to my knowledge, I don't know the answer to that because that was before I took over as director. We do have a contract with the company that for their space. But whether or not they had to go before the zoning board, I don't know the answer to that. Dennis,
How long ago were the cell towers put on the county?
So,
Dennis, do you recall that?
yeah, in general, a lot of communities, when they approve commercial cell facilities, there's an offer from the commercial cell facilities to allow first responders to locate on the tower. So a lot of communities require that as a condition or include it as part of the permitting process. So you'll start to see a lot of these towers that essentially have commercial communications facilities. The right of first responders to get on the tower is granted with the original approval of the tower.
I understand that, Dennis.
Well, then there's no variance. There's no variance issue here.
No, but I think his question was, when a cell tower went on to the Kingston facility, which is owned by the county of Ulster, did the cell tower need to get a use variance, or
No.
did they just do a lease agreement with the county?
They were a special permit, and the county made them go back to the local planning board to go through the process of a special permit.
So they never came to the zoning board of that community. They only needed the special permit from the planning board.
That's correct. They didn't require a variance.
Right. So it doesn't necessarily come back to the zoning board as was referenced before. It could just go.
In the case of Saugerties, your zoning statute prohibits commercial facilities in this zoning district.
Correct.
So that's why if they were in this zoning, if they came back here, they would have to come to you because it'd be a prohibited use.
Okay.
Dennis, I have a question for you. You're kicking this around, and I understand what you're saying is correct. But could the county at this point say, yeah, we would be open to have a cell tower or cell antenna on our tower? Or again, to help police, fire, because we're hearing this quite a bit from Verizon. We're in the process right now with Mount Marion. Okay. So if this going to enhance them and enhance the county, which I understand. I mean, we've maintained Tonchi and all these. We did that. I did that for 35 years with you. You're aware of that. But my point being is, would that be something that the county would entertain?
So I'm not sure I understand the question. Let me see if I can answer it this way. The county.
Don't you understand? I'll explain it better.
I wasn't sure whether you were referring, would we allow other first responders on our tower? And if that was the question, the answer is yes. And we would take a look at the loading on the tower to make sure that there was room on that tower, or could be room on that tower for other first responders in the Saugerties area if they're interested. And that would be but if we're talking about, are there commercial facilities from that tower? We've made representation to this board, and I'll stick with it. The county has no intention of allowing commercial facilities on this tower.
No intention.
Okay.
Okay. I have other questions, but I'm going to wait until after the public comments so they have an opportunity to talk.
Okay, I just have one more question. Probably for Steve. The other towers that you have, that you own or lease, how tall are they?
They vary in size depending on the location. They run from 150 to 180.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Gene, this is Joe. I have a question before we go to the public.
Yes, Joe.
My question is, are there other available areas within this zone, or not zone, but in this area that are in a permitted zone that would provide the coverage that this tower will give?
Well, the short answer is that given the way the statute is written, the statute references commercial facilities and provides essentially siting guidelines and uses for commercial facilities. It does not mention first responder facilities. So one could argue that there's no place in the town where first responders and emergency communication facilities are permitted use.
I don't think that's what he asked you, Dennis.
Well, he asked me if there's another zone I could put it in.
Something like that.
Are you putting this for first responders or for county?
Well, it would be emergency. It's not a commercial facility. Let me put it that way.
It's a communications tower, right?
Yeah,
but it's not. Yeah, your zoning statute is written around a language called commercial communication tower. This is not a commercial communication tower.
Joe is alluding to that. He understands that. And he's asking, was any other alternative sites looked at besides this here?
No, I thought he asked if there was any other zones where they were permitted. And my answer was directed at that.
No, it's sites, not zones. I misspoke. Other sites that would provide the same coverage.
Well, I would presume the answer is yes. We didn't do a complete coverage analysis throughout the entire town in terms of where we could put it. We found a site that essentially meets the requirements of the county that the county owns.
I'm just going on the fact that maybe there's a place that this tower would be permitted that we wouldn't have to go through this exercise.
And that was my answer. I don't believe there is. And if we look at the critical coverage gaps that are out here, we have to be in and around this vicinity. And if you look at the zoning in this vicinity, it's all similar to the zoning that essentially is currently on this site, and we'd have to be back here again.
Let me add to that. Even if this was a commercial facility, the way the zoning is written, commercial facilities involving new towers are not permitted in any districts other than the industrial or office light industrial district, neither of which is located any place near this particular site.
But it is allowed in the industrial zone, right, Dan?
But there's no industrial zone near here.
I just say near there. I don't think Joe, but they are allowed in the industrial zone.
Yes, but that's the point being to serve the. I think the question was: is there another site which could fill the same gap that this site is designed to fill? And there's nothing nearby that I would assume going to the industrial zone would be far enough away to not address the need here. Am I right, Dennis?
Jeannie, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you're muted, Jeannie.
Okay, now it says mute.
You're unmuted.
Good. Thank you, Henry. I believe Mr. Doyle spoke about the fact that in our industrial and light industrial zones, there's no mention of first responder facilities, which is what this is, a public safety radio tower, which is different from a commercial cell tower. Is that correct, Dan? Because otherwise you would not be here before the zoning board. You would be back at the planning board.
Well, depending where they wanted to put it. If it wasn't in an industrial or office light industrial district, they still would have to be back before your board because a new tower is only permitted in those districts.
Correct. I understand that. But because I understood that the reason they were here before the zoning board is because, and I read the section of the zoning law again today, there is no mention of a radio safety tower, i.e. first responder facility. It is only for commercial cell towers.
Correct. But I was saying before, even if it was a commercial tower, it's not permitted in or any place near this proposed site.
I understand that, Dan. I understand that. But there is no place, as you said, I believe before, there's no place in the town where this is allowed by right. even with planning board approval, special use permit, etc., which is why we are all here tonight. Is that correct?
Well, it's because the county has not requested, and probably with good reason, but has not requested a use variance. Their only request is for a determination as to whether or not they are subject to the local zoning law.
Correct. And it is the zoning board's job to make that determination. I understand that. But my question, which I think goes to Henry and Joe's question, is there is not really any other place in Saugerties. Never mind how high it is, never mind the location, where it is allowed with simply planning board approval because of the way our zoning law is written.
Correct.
That's my understanding.
Mine too.
Yep, correct.
Okay. Even though Dan is not a member of the zoning board, good. That's three of us who read it the same way. Okay. Despite my best intentions to move along swiftly, I have kept, and I apologize to all the public who are here tonight. I've kept you all waiting, and I don't want to have you go away, please. But I will say that the first person that wrote us an email and asked to speak was Randy Ricks from the Centerville Fire Department. Now, I understand I haven't seen Randy Ricks here, but there are several other people from the Centerville Fire Department. So is someone here to speak for them? I would like to open the public hearing to the public, but I would like to start with someone from the Centerville Fire Department, please.
How you doing? This is Chief Mullen. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
we can. Thank you.
All right, so I want to thank you guys for allowing us to come on and talk about this. It's a pretty serious issue for us as far as public safety in that area. This tower directly affects our daily operations every single day. We respond to about 25 or 30% of our 400 calls a year in that area. Over the years, we've spent thousands of dollars to try and piecemeal a radio system together that will allow us to communicate with 911. And I feel like we've been working towards this radio system for many, many years, even prior to me being fire chief. I think that this radio tower is not something that's it's very necessary, put it that way. And I think that if you guys can consider it, I think that it's going to be very beneficial to the volunteers that go out each and every day on their own time to sacrifice their lives for others. So that's about all I have to say on that issue. I just appreciate you guys allowing us to come on here and talk about it. If anyone has any questions for me, as being the fire chief in that specific area, I'll be here just to listen in and answer any questions that you may have.
I got a question for you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
How, if I'm understanding you correctly, this would enhance your 911 communication?
That's correct.
Okay.
How would it? Yeah.
Now, how would that be different than Mount Marion?
So for us, we actually cover that area where that tower will be.
I understand. No, I understand the districts. I understand. I understand the district. I'm saying to you, all I've been hearing from Mount Marion is that they need cell service. And being an officer with Glasgow for years, being involved with fire, with the sheriff's department, and with the county. 911, our tower communication from our radios, the sheriff's department radios, all come off the towers that Dennis and I don't know the other gentleman, and that's for our communications back and forth. They be from county to the sheriff's department, or from fire control to a county if they needed a truck. Or so then why would it be so critical that Verizon service would be more critical in the Mount Marion district than the 911 service?
So the tower that they're putting in Quarryville is going to reach them. So when 911 communicates with, and Steve Peterson may be able to add more to this, but when 911 tries to communicate with anyone in our town, the tower that we're going off of is either Woodstock or Kingston.
No, believe me, I understand that, and I totally appreciate what you're saying, and I totally agree with what you're saying. But I'm hearing a different story from Mount Marion, and you confirmed what I've been saying is that you don't need cell service in Mount Marion. You need better 911 communications from the county to the trucks, because that's what we communicate over. We don't communicate over cell service when we have an emergency.
So I can tell you that my fire department, and I'm not speaking on behalf of Mount Marion, my fire department, each one of my chief's vehicles have a computer in it that runs off a cell service. The call is automatically sent to our vehicles, gives us up-to-date information that sometimes we can't get on the radio.
Understood.
So the cell service is very important for that aspect of my fire department. As far as Mount Marion, I don't know what they have as far as computer systems. We have GPS in all of our vehicles. We have computer systems in all our vehicles that give us real-time data and call information. So for cell service for us is super important also. And in that area, there is no cell service for us. My computer shuts out when I get in that area of Quarryville.
There's nothing from 9W32 all the way to Kingston.
That's correct.
And Glasgow East Kingston district.
But even in Centerville, where we have a cell tower by our firehouse, there's still no service in Quarryville, cell service.
How come?
The tower doesn't reach that far. It's at Centerville Firehouse, and we lose cell service when we get in Quarryville. So, a cell service is very important to me, as well as this radio communication tower. This radio communication tower is by far more important to me than cell service.
Exactly.
Because real-time quick information.
You answered my question. I've been arguing that point.
But that's just me. I'm not speaking on behalf of Mount Marion.
You don't have that's not just you. What you're saying is a fact of what first responders, whether it be fire, EMTs, okay, sheriff, highway, that's what we go off of. We don't go off of cell. We go off of our radio system.
So
nowadays, though, cell is very important.
I can speak. This is Chief Sasso. I can speak from the other aspect of it, and I know we're getting a little off track here because cell is an issue in the Mount Marion district, but cell is an integral part of the 911 system right now. Cell service is important, but what we're talking about here is a radio communications tower to communicate with the 911 system. I think the cell tower is a whole different issue for Mount Marion, but I can tell you in the Glasgow Fire District, we have no cell service, and that is almost as dangerous as not having any 911 service, which we have neither in Glasgow or Mount Marion.
I've been arguing that point with Verizon for 2.5 years, 3 years, and they just ignore it. They say, "Oh yeah, there's you have spots." It's not spots. You have no cell service from Bishopsgate coming down 32 to Kingston. At my house, I'm lucky if I have one bar.
Right. So there's two different. These are two different situations. I'm very aware of the cell tower in Mount Marion, but to stay focused on the emergency communication tower. I've been chief in the Glasgow Fire District for almost 10 years. 8 years ago, I attended my first meeting about emergency communications. I can tell you we've been waiting that long, and even prior to that. We're in a very dangerous situation right now where we literally have zero communication on the fire ground. We rely on our internal systems, which only gives us the ability to talk amongst ourselves. I certainly understand everyone's opinion on this call. I've attended a number of planning board meetings on a number of projects in our fire district. I understand it's a very difficult decision for this board, but I can tell you wherever this tower goes, we will have somebody who won't like it. We need to make a decision in the town of Sorgadese, or I'm afraid we're going to start losing lives. It is that dangerous. There is zero communication unless you're operating from a vehicle, which isn't realistic on a fire ground scene. And from a paramedic situation, ambulance situation, where they're inside somebody's residence and not having the ability for them to call for extra hands during a cardiac arrest or a serious medical situation where they have to leave a patient and run out to their vehicle. Think about this if this is one of you, where you're looking at this, or one of your family members watching these ambulance people have to leave your loved one to go outside to get on the radio. That's the dangerous situation we're in right now in the town of Sorgadese, and it is not a good one.
Mike, there's no argument over needing the service. Not for me anyway, and I don't believe anyone on the board. We have to weigh other variables beside that, but as far as a need for it, 100% correct.
Absolutely. I just wanted to make it clear because I know the cell situation is a terrible situation over on that side of town as well, and they're totally separate.
Yeah, let's not get into the cell thing tonight. We have other
right. They're totally separate situations, although pertaining to emergencies, it is just important.
Correct. Thanks, Mike.
May I ask a question? This is Bill Harrison.
Can you wait 1 minute,
Sure.
please? I just want to say that I know that I speak for the entire zoning board, that we appreciate the service of all the fire companies, the ambulance companies, and everyone. And that's part of what is making it so the decision so difficult for us. But we do not want you to think you are unappreciated. While we don't
think that.
While we go through this process that we are legally bound to do.
Absolutely, we totally agree.
Thank you. Okay, unless somebody else on the zoning board has something that they want to say, I am now going to open it to the public.
Hello, Anthony Cordage. I'd like to speak now.
Please do, Mr. Cordage.
Thank you so much. My name is Anthony Cordage. I reside at 66 Church Road, which is the closest adjacent property to the proposed tower, 840 feet. I'm requesting a veto of the zoning change based on 2 of the 9 Monroe factors. First and foremost, factor 5. In October 20th, Sorgadese Town Boarding meeting, Mr. Doyle advised that this site is not the only site in consideration, but it's the most convenient for the county because of its location. Also, October 20th meeting, I was made aware of the fact about the tower, which is in addition to the issues I already raised at the meeting, represent impact on legitimate local interests. In that meeting, Mr. Doyle advised that the tower would have lights. My home sits on a large on the ridge, which places at higher elevation than the base of the tower and nearer to the top and closer to those lights. I have a documented medical condition that is impacted by lights, especially flashing lights. Placement of this tower would basically render me a prisoner inside my own home with curtains pulled, especially at night, but also during daylight, if the light is flashing. These places, this places my health at great risk. In either case, I would not be able to be outside my property in the evening. I have chosen where I live based on my medical condition and current zoning, which in this which is in the middle of the woods at the end of a dead end road. The tower is in close proximity and viewable from every part of my property and residence, which amazingly we didn't get to see the computer generated photo from the angle or anywhere on Church Road. But today he did show one which was misleading because it was on Church Road, and he also stated is most of the houses sit up about 420 feet. So that was looking up at an angle, not the actual view from the houses on the end of Church Road. So there was many misled pictures from a significant distance away also. To avoid health issues, the placement of this tower would leave me no option other than attempting to sell my property, which may be difficult due to the tower and cause financial hardship due to decreased property value and place me at medical risk if unable to sell quickly. This communication serves to notify and document future liabilities to the town of Saugerties, the county of Ulster, and personally Mr. Doyle and members of the Saugerties Town Board and members of the zoning board of my documented medical condition, and that the placement of this tower in the proposed location would have severe impact on my health, quality of life, and finances. That's what I have to say about that. Now, if you just give me 1 second, I'm going to turn on my camera because I have a picture of the balloons outside my window, and I would all like you to see this because this is what leaves on. So it leaves off, we would have a lot more of the tower showing. And this is the one that we never get to talk about here. Did that come on, babe?
Yes.
Built it.
We didn't see it.
All right, I'm trying. Here's on my window. There you go. And right up here are the balloons. It's tough to see in here. I'm trying. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. I asked them on October 20th to come over and take pictures from my house where it would be, and they were right here, 50, 100 feet from my house, 200 feet from my house, which they could have flown. They could have flew the drone up to the actual. They could have flew the drone up to the actual height from my property without trespassing on my property. This has created great anxiety on me because this is where I plan to live my retirement, and I'm getting very close to retirement. And what this is going to do on the impact of my life, my family's life, and my well-being is just horrifying to me. That's all I have to say. I have to be up at 3:30 in the morning and go to work. So I'm going to let you all talk about this, discuss it, and I hope you all make the right decision. And there's no way I know we do need this tower. I just do not agree with this location because on an if or an and or a but, they're saying to save somebody's life, but they are actually endangering my life and my well-being. So am I the scapegoat? Obviously, Mr. Doyle did not talk about my property too much. He did not do it because he knows I'm in such a close proximity. So also, when I did my research, it was 400 meters from the tower to the house, the residence is supposed to be. I'm 257 feet, so I'm not 400 meters. So I'm very close to the tower. I really wish they'd come stand on my porch, take a picture of where the tower is, and do one of those computer generated ones. You all seen my house from where it was sitting from the top of the drone. It was crystal clear. You all saw my house where there was no leaves. That's all I'm going to leave you with. Like I said, I get up early in the morning to support my family, and I'm going to have to go shortly. But I appreciate the time you gave me, and I'm sorry when I interrupted before, but I'm up early in the morning. Thank you so much. I'm still here if you need to say anything.
May I pose a question? Bill Harrison?
Sure, go ahead.
Not to you, Anthony, particularly, but kind of to you. Also, I was just going to mention two things. I've been working out of Albany for 20 years, never had Verizon cell coverage for my business out of Albany to my home, and that's why I went with AT&T. And for 20 years, I've never had an issue with cell coverage using AT&T from my home on Church Road, down 32, up the highway, down, so I'm just offering that. I know it's not a cell coverage issue, but I'm not sure why Verizon is the only alternative when you need cell coverage, because this area is covered by AT&T. My second point, just for consideration, my second point regarding the tower location, we kind of hedged about an alternate location, but we've never heard about what those alternate locations were or what the considerations were. What I'd like the board to think about is we have a tower on the other side of 32 that's on a mountain. I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, but the 180-foot requirement is so the microwave antenna can actually see point to point, or as the crow flies, to the other microwave antenna that it's talking to. The reason it's 180 foot here is because we're not as high as the tower that's on the mountain that's not even a mile away from us. So therefore, that tower wouldn't need to be as high, A. It's already established as a tower on a mountain in our area. I don't know any of the technical variances or whatever, but I'm not, I feel like this is another, like, well, we put all our stuff in one bucket and now we have to prove ourselves that this is a bad location, rather than due diligence, looking at alternative locations and telling us why this location, other than the fact that it's easy because it's already county owned. I understand the cost. But why is that other tower, again, that's not even a mile from here, that's on a mountain, not considered as an alternate place, either for a new tower or to put proposed antennas on that? Okay, the other alternative that I'm hearing, and especially to Anthony's point, is the county owns 22 acres. Now, they're going to, as far as it's cleared, okay, understandably, there's a cost to clear further north, but wouldn't a lot of this go away if you could actually clear out a path into the north part of the 22 acres and put the tower outside the purview of Anthony or any of the rest of us? A, as far as aesthetics. B, our neighbors had asked about, the issue of transmissions basically powering through our neighborhood. The first meeting, one of the neighbors asked about 5G, and obviously that was, well, it's not a 5G tower. I understood that, she didn't. But the point is, and as I'm sorry, Janet, I think, said, there's a big difference between they don't plan to now and where you already have it documented in Tanashi Olive, that as a leased tower, it's a communication site only. It's not even, can't even be considered or whatever, because that is the contract of apparently the way they leased it in Olive. I'm throwing these couple of things out there because I think there's other methods to maybe getting everything satisfied for getting a radio tower built, moving it from its, although it's easier where it is, there are alternate ways of getting a tower in this area. And I would like to hear feedback from the engineers as to why other parts of the 22 acres can't be considered, other than the fact that they have to clear some trees and some minute area for the foot of this site. I don't really understand why we're going through all this hubbub when you could place it somewhere else deeper in the woods if in fact this is the only site. So I'd like answers on alternate locations, why it can't be on the existing tower that's a mile from us and or in that vicinity, and why we just can't consider placing this, if it has to be placed, deeper into the woods. And then again, you know, I get cell coverage through AT&T. I don't work for AT&T. So if communications to our near and dear first responders, God bless them, especially in these times, if they need cell coverage, then go to AT&T and you don't have to put a tower up.
AT&T doesn't work down here, but
it works in my house. It's worked for 20 years.
It works in your house. I've tried it. Other ones have tried. I had it for like 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
32 down. AT&T is useless. Sprint is useless. Okay. We've tried it.
Can we clarify one thing?
I'm sorry, we're not going to talk about cell towers tonight. Please.
Yeah, this is Jim Dickens with the engineering. To clarify one thing.
Yes, please.
There was the concern of Mr. Cordich about light on the tower. There's no lighting for the tower. The FAA did not require any there, so there's not going to be any lights on the tower. So just to clarify his concern with regards to lighting the tower, it will not be lit.
Well, I want to know with the helicopters that fly over all left and right over my house, how they're going to see that tower, because it is a path for helicopters, which people own in the area. So, you know, I don't understand how you can put something that high and not have a light on it, because when you go through the county, every other tower has flashing lights on it. So I can't see how that would be safe for helicopters or low flying planes. I just want to know how you come up with that one.
And again, I don't expect an answer for my questions, but I'm posing this in front of our zoning board.
Thank you.
I would expect that ultimately, not tonight, but another time, that those questions could be considered and responded to. Thank you.
Is there someone else who wishes to speak from the neighbors or from the public? Thank you, Mr. Harrison.
I have an Andy Turco-Levin with their hand up in the participants if they would like to share with us.
I had hit that button by mistake. I'm really sorry. I'm just listening.
Hi, my name is Darlene Pedrosa. I have just a couple comments, if I can.
Yes, please.
So I am at 432 Old Route 32, and if you look at that blue building that the tower was looking at, that's right near the restaurant, I'm on the right side of that. And my concerns, you know, I know there are not a tremendous amount of studies, but my real concern is the electromagnetic fields and the impacts that might have on our health being so close to the radio tower. And I know that there have been studies done by Mr. Doyle with whomever, I don't know the exact agency, that said that it's within the FDA standards or whatever the terms are. But in reality, even though it's within those standards, there are studies out there that have been shown to cause health damage to people in that close proximity. And so I worry about that for me and my family, you know, what that's going to do long term in terms of health, especially since this neighborhood, for some reason, has a high level of cancer rate. You know, a lot of my neighbors have had cancer in one form or another. And so it concerns me. You know, we have someone on the corner right next to us with a brain tumor. We had someone that died of prostate cancer. We have someone that had thyroid cancer. And well, even though those all may or may not be related to this area, just adding one more thing to add to that concern, just makes me very nervous and uneasy, on top of all the other things like the feasibility of selling our homes once this tower is put up, the visibility, and so on. So that is my concern. I don't know if anyone else would agree with that, but I do think that there are health concerns to be acknowledged. But also, I just want to say to the fire chief and to those that work on the Centerville Fire Department that we do appreciate your service. And it's not that we don't want those emergency services for you guys. That's not it. But there are other legitimate concerns that we have as citizens and property owners that are right next to this tower.
I appreciate that. I understand your concern.
Thank you. Is there someone else who wishes to speak?
Could I, this is Bill Harrison again, if I might, in the quiet time here. It seems like a lot of questions is like, why can't we do another balloon test with the leaves off and some of the things that we're talking about? I think some of the mistrust, if you will, in our community is that basically none of us knew anything about this until the hearing period closed in September, and we were told about it in October. And as always in Quarryville, we're always scrambling for our lives against tire dumps and alien invasions, and God only knows, right? It seems, we're a little community, but we're always like sort of battling the giants. Again, to my neighbor's point, we love the volunteers. We need this tower, no doubt. We want to make sure the tower is placed in a safe location that meets everybody's needs. I think that can be done. I don't think we've really examined all the alternatives at this point. And I would say, what's the big thing about floating a couple more balloons and taking pictures from persons' homes at this point in time? And again, I think because the drone stuff, it just seems there's a lot of mistrust because of the way this thing was rolled out to us, and we had to kind of scramble together to then bring together questions and educate ourselves on radio transmissions and the like. So can we float another balloon test, and will we get notified? And also, why did you put this in a paper that nobody reads? Okay, we got a letter because we happened to be in a 500-foot from the tower. Apparently, the legal aspect is if your property adjoins the 500-foot parcel that's in this tower, you actually get a letter from Ulster County about things. Well, couldn't they have done this much sooner than this, A? And B, my dear friends Alan Bryant and his wife that have been here for 35 years, I've been here for 35 years. Anthony, apparently his family's been there for 50 years. Why couldn't we just have posted a letter to each home, there's not that many of us, to notify us that this kind of thing was being considered for our area? Again, it caused a lot of mistrust. It's causing a lot of angst. And, it could have been avoided, I would say. But again, I guess my point is, let's float another balloon test and visit people's properties and at least go from there and consider some of the other questions that alternates I proposed. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Yes, there is, Jean. This is Alan Bryan.
Yes, Alan, thank you.
And first, I want to thank Bill for so concisely bringing up exactly the same points I was going to bring up, and with no collusion at all beforehand. I'm at the, we live in the old church, 24 East Church Road. And what's happened here is a result of, as Bill said, not being upfront with us and trying to just ram this thing through, seemingly ram it through. without letting the neighborhood know. And of course, you're getting the kickback because it wasn't done with our, it seems like not being done in the best interest of the neighborhood. We all agree that this is really needed, but let's put it where it'll do the least amount of invasiveness on our living. Please investigate Mount Airy, how you could work out something with a private tower. Last time it was talked about, we were told that it wasn't strong enough to physically support the additional antennas. A lot of antennas, a lot of weight. Perhaps it really has to be further explored. That would be my comment.
Thank you, Ellen. You can all hear me, I hope?
Yes.
Good. Thank you. I want to say that, well, I want to ask Mr. Harrison, which paper that nobody reads did we publish it in?
I'm sorry.
We won't tell, but for future reference, we need to know.
I clearly misspoke because we don't get the paper. And my point is, when you have something this vital to this community or any community, there's other vehicles other than the newspaper, because a lot of people in 2020 don't read newspapers. We use the internet, we use blogs, okay. So to put it in a paper that probably, I don't know, I'm assuming, pardon my assumption, if a letter came to the houses, tax bills come to our houses and they always get here, right? I think it would behoove, the process, if they can get a tax bill to our homes, that they could actually post something like this about a public hearing well in advance of people telling us what they've already done and taking pictures about. And therefore, to Alan's point, cause a lot of angst. Our neighbor, Anthony, and so forth, you heard all his concerns.
Yes.
This was done very poorly. I'm sorry, just very poorly. It could have been done better. We are advocates of our volunteers and advocates of safety, healthy. And again, we've lived here. My wife and I raised our son 35 years here. Alan, 35. Alan, probably more than 35. Mike Harkavy, 35 years. We've lived a long time and battled as an alternate site to a mega dump, when you remember those days, right?
Oh, yes.
We battled, and thank you, zoning board.
Oh, yes.
For the tire dump, okay? And now, here's this other thing, and I'm sorry, how can we not be cynical when things are done this way and there's a backlash from it? I'm sorry, poorly executed, but we are where we are right now. And as I said, I think, and Alan's point, let's look at alternatives. Tell us about why they can't do some of these other alternatives. Why an alternate site? Why couldn't you build a tower if the tower that's on Mount Airy Mountain is not strong enough? I understand there'll be additional cost. But guess what? The county's never been too concerned about raising my taxes on other things. I don't know. It just seems to me, sorry for my frankness, but, again, we have a lot of investment into this community. My wife, Ellen, grew up in this neighborhood. I'm not going to tell you how old she is, okay? Because she's sitting right next to me.
Good.
Smart move.
We bought the house that we own because my wife grew up with the lady that owned this house and passed away in her 90s. And she loved this house, loved this community. Her and I, 4 years into our marriage, bought this house because, again, we invested into a community that has a lot of meaning to my wife. I'm not going to go on. The point
is... May I interrupt you?
Oh, by all means. I'm sorry.
Thank you. No, I'm feeling a bit defensive because this has been a two-part situation. Initially, Mr. Doyle and Ulster County went to the planning board. And that was when the balloon test, et cetera, was done. It wasn't until our attorney informed us that it is the zoning board that needs to make the decision about this Monroe decision. Okay? So we just started last week, or last month, rather. Okay? That's number one. Number two, we are all volunteers also. Just so you should know it, the entire zoning board, we do not get paid. Most of the time, we don't get terribly appreciated. And I'm not asking for that, but I'm just telling you. And the third thing is that we are charged and have to take a pledge that we will follow the zoning law of the town of Saugerties. The town of Saugerties tells us in the zoning law which papers, newspapers we can put legal advertisements in and how long in advance, and then pays for them. The town of Saugerties says when to do it, where to do it. We also try to keep up with the times, thanks to Kevin Freeman, our secretary, by putting things on the town website for those of you who are computer people. So if you look on the town website, you will find a lot of information about this. That's for you, those of you who are computer people. But we do put it in, sometimes in the Kingston Freeman, but always in Hudson Valley One, which used to be the Saugerties Times, and it's the official newspaper of the town of Saugerties. And we don't have a choice. We have to follow the law. That being said, I will ask if anyone else has anything else you'd like to say, please.
I do. I'm
Because
sorry
we
to
do.
interrupt again. My name is Darlene again. I just had a question. So if this gets approved, which I really hope it's going to be considered a lot longer and a lot of other alternatives may arise, but if this is approved, is there any way that we can get a lot more notice so that for those of us that don't want to live 500 feet away from a big, huge radio tower can sell our homes without it being erected already? I mean, honestly, because I would like to know.
I'm not sure that is a question that the zoning board can answer. I understand what you're saying. You would like enough notice so you could sell your house before the tower goes up. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, 1,000%. Yes. Yeah. So how will we know whether this has been approved by the zoning board? Will we know, or are we just going to wake up one day and it's going to be erected?
I sincerely hope that you will attend all zoning board meetings where it is discussed and decisions are made. That's how you will know. We will be here.
This is
Hi,
Margaret.
Jeannie, Mike Harkeby.
Yes, Mike.
Hi. First of all, Jeannie, we love you. We know you're doing the job.
I didn't say it for that. Thank you.
One, I'd like to follow up on what Bill said, and just to make sure that we are looking into that section of the property north. Is that a reality or not? We've talked a lot about the Mount Airy Tower, but that's a new idea, and I think the ZBA should definitely be investigating that. I want to go back and to what Mr. Ruiz said, because I think he really had the clear view of what we are concerned about. And that is that we are not seeing views from properties, we're seeing views from a drone. And we need to see those simulations from other places. Now, it seems that they're very eager have a simulation at the far end of Church Road. They're assuming you're going to see from there. They had no problem doing a simulation looking north from the restaurant. And those are the only two simulations we've seen. We have not seen anything basically from a property. And so I think it's essential that there be another balloon test to create a simulation. I know when we were working on the tire dump, we had people along the ridge, the western ridge of the property, taking video of the trucks coming in. So there's obviously wide open space off of State Road that's sort of been neglected. I don't live on State Road. I'm down the hill, but I did ride back there, and I know you can walk in the backyard and you're going to see that tower. So we need to get simulations similar to the two that we've seen from all areas surrounding the property, including the north end of Church, all of Stay Road. And I don't think we're going to be very happy until we see that. At least I will.
Thank you.
This is Margarita Cian.
Yes.
Hi, and I live on People's Lane. And I want to back up Darlene's question before. If this tower goes up, I hope it doesn't, but if it does, it's very clear there will be homes that would depreciate in value. So what is the plan for compensation for those people when their home depreciates in value, or is there one? Thank you.
I won't ask you to take that, Mr. Doyle.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
I'm not sure I should. I said I won't ask you to take that question.
Okay.
But Margarita, you have been heard.
Thank you.
Is anyone else that has something you would like to say?
Dennis, just clarify this for me. As Mr. Harkavy said, which I opened the meeting with this here, showing visual with the simulation by far outweighs everything else. Now, if you did it with those sites, how much of a problem is you have the drone showing the houses all around the area. So all you've done is just basically reverse that and shown a simulation of the tower from the house, correct?
Well, yes and no. The correct part about it is reversing it sounds like it's simple, but it's not. One is that
sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't.
Well, a couple of things. One is that you don't have permission to access these folks' properties. You'd have to essentially secure permission, liability issues, all of those things. So that's the reason we're taking. That's the reason we're taking the shots from the roads themselves and not from private property. That's the first thing. The second thing is that while I can appreciate the sense that we need perhaps additional visualizations, my question to the ZBA is the visualizations you have give you a sense of the magnitude of impact, right? So, I'm also hearing a discussion about alternatives. So I don't want to go out and do a whole lot of simulations which essentially show similar impacts of what you've already been showing, and then have the board tell me, by the way, those impacts are going to outweigh the balance of public interest tests. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that when we start looking at alternatives, the balance of public interest test is asking us to find alternatives in a less restrictive zone. It's not an alternative search throughout where we are. And the other thing I would say is looking at the property itself, we're up against the northern boundary of our property right now. We looked at other areas in our property to put it and moved back as far away as we could, from that. Now, there is an adjoining property that we own that we could think about moving into, but that's going to bring it closer to Mr. Cordich's house, not further away.
Okay. So getting back to my point, how much time and effort would it take to make those simulations at the other properties?
Considerable.
Considerable. What's considerable, Dennis?
Considerable means I don't have any money in my contract right now. I'd have to go back to the legislature for more money. So we're probably talking spring.
Money is part of doing business, then. You know that.
I'm just telling you where we are right now. I mean, I could do additional simulations, perhaps with a drone, to what we did on Church Road. And if we get permission from Mr. Cordich, perhaps access his. I'd have to talk to the consultants in terms of what their concerns are, or what other people's concerns are in terms of actually being on somebody else's property, to see whether that could be the case. But we need the permission. The back end of Stay Road is clearly visible. There's no structures on it. There's no question about the back end of Stay Road being visible. We've actually had a conversation with that neighbor, who didn't seem concerned about it. But there is a visibility from that area, but not from a structure in that area.
Okay, I'm just trying to cut through.
So am I. Understand something. I'm here to try to move this forward. I'm not here trying to stop not do additional work.
So if we're both on the same page, here's what I'm looking at. If all the residents signed a consent.
Hold on. Stop. Let me. All the residents are. If I can at least give me this much, Henry. When I look at leaf on and leaf off photos and you can't see any houses, that's not all the residents. I'm going to go in and try to take pictures of something I can't see. Right? There are certain places where we know that there's visibility of the towers that we can document, and it makes some sense to go in and take a look at those areas and see what we can do in terms of visual simulations. But when you start globalizing this and start saying all the residents, I'm thinking maybe 2, right? You're thinking maybe how many? 15? I don't know.
Whatever's impacted by it, Dennis.
But we can see what's impacted. I mean, let me turn this around. I mean, looking at the photos.
Okay, I'm going to stop this, gentlemen, please.
What are you stopping, Gene? That's the whole part of having this meeting.
I understand, but I want to insert balloons in this. We've had several requests for additional balloon tests. Would that satisfy both of you? And is it in your budget, Mr. Doyle?
Well, I mean, here's my question back to the board. I mean, you can see the magnitude of impact that you're currently looking at given the visual simulations we've given you. The visual simulations that we give you with respect to this, we have a sense of what they're going to see. I mean, if the board is not disposed in terms of approving the site now, my sense is why am I being asked to do additional studies? If I'm being asked to do additional studies because you think that you don't have enough information and you're comfortable with the visual impacts you're seeing now, I'd be more than willing to go ahead and do the additional studies. But if you're uncomfortable with what you're seeing and you're basically saying to me that I should do an alternatives analysis, my question then is, why should I do additional visual simulations? I'm trying to get a read of the board here in terms of doing that. So I wouldn't worry about the budget. I mean, that's going back to the legislature, and I can ask, and those are things that we can have that conversation about.
I don't believe that you should worry about what the board thinks. I think you should believe what Mr. Harkavy and Mr. Allen and Mr. Harrison, what they're seeing. We're not seeing it. They're going to have to live with this.
Well, my point being is it's the board's decision.
Correct.
Right? And what I would say to the board is that if you're going to say visual simulations, then tell me where you want them from. Right? I would suggest if we can get on Mr. Cordich's property, that's one place that we can look. And if you're concerned about Stay Road, then that's the other place we can look. But for me, doing visual simulations at the beginning of Church Street, I can't see anything from the beginning of Church Street.
Why would you do one then from the Quarryville garage?
Because I can see the Quarryville garage from the drone. And we also had
from the
pictures.
road.
And that's
Yeah, from the road. And I can also.
Point, Dennis. That's
But
my
no,
point. If you can see it, if the drone can see it.
Well, we already did those visual simulations. We've done those, Henry.
Okay. And all I'm asking is put a simulation of the tower.
We did it from that location.
No, at the locations of the people that are asking, that are concerned
But
about.
if I can't, I don't, let me, I'm trying to be clear about this.
May
What-
I understand, if I understand what you are saying is you do not want to waste time and money, obviously, excuse me, on another balloon test or any kind of visualizations if what the board really wants are alternatives.
Well,
is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not, Jeannie. Let me. Okay. And I wouldn't call doing this. I don't call this work waste of money. And I please don't characterize
I did not say that.
Okay. My sense would be is it would help me understand the level of when you say the properties, it would help me. It would be really important for me to understand that there are a finite number of properties, and that we can make a decision that these are the areas that we are most concerned about, because we know what the impacts are from the other areas. You can get a sense that if a house is, if you know where we begin at the beginning of the property where we've done that one visual simulation, you know what that tower looks like. The houses on Church Road at the beginning of Church Road are similar distance away with more vegetation between them, and we can't see them leaf on, we can't see them leaf off from a drone flight. For me, doing visual simulations from those, I don't think I can even see, I can't see drones and I won't see balloons in those locations. As compared to the end of Stay Road, where essentially I know from looking at the photos that I can find areas in there that I can see the drones and we can do visual simulations. The same thing with respect to Mr. Cordich's property. Those are very finite visual simulations as compared to everybody that has concerns about whether they can see the tower or not. I think we can allay those concerns by just looking at the pictures.
I cannot speak for everyone on the board, but drones, pictures, although they might be very interesting and pretty, especially before the leaves were off, are not really helpful to me as to how properties can see where the tower will be, especially since in most of the pictures, there's no indication of where the tower will be. And when I go up and do a site visit, all I see is maybe a foot high stake with a very faded blue.
Jeannie, can you and I visit the site together?
Perhaps.
But that's not the point, Mr. Doyle. We really, all of us on the board and the public have a right to see where it's going to be. We asked about this last meeting for it to be shown so that people could see where the tower is going to be. We asked for that.
I apologize. I thought my buildings department had marked it. There is a stake out there. It is marked.
Yes. But you cannot see it from the road.
You cannot see it from the public road, Quarry Road. You have to go into the driveway, which is private, I believe.
So
we did, and the same stake that was there a month ago is still there with the same faded blue tape on it. If I had not known where the site was, I wouldn't be able to find it. Certainly not from the road.
So is there any sense that the ZBA wants to visit the site?
I want to go out there and see the site. Was out there, but I couldn't figure out where the tower was. So it was not helpful to me. Because there was nothing to indicate where it was from the road. I was on the road. I didn't get out and walk into the site. So just from Quarry Road, I couldn't figure out where the tower was.
So if you physically went there and seen the site where the tower was going to be.
And I couldn't figure out.
I'm not sure what that tells you, but I'm more than willing to take people out to the site and walk the site with them.
Yeah, but we're not all going to go together.
No.
That's fine. I will go as many times or in many locations as you want to.
But that's not.
Twice. I
The
don't want to
public
go
wants
back.
to see it too. The public,
I have
the
a
people who live
comment.
there want to see it.
That's right, Patty. Now that we know about this study, because I think that we were kept in the dark, like everyone has said, until the last minute. If we knew that there was a balloon, and I would like to know how much a balloon, raising those balloons would actually cost. But if we were to actually raise those balloons and everyone was alerted, then we can take our own pictures and submit them. I mean, it's really not that hard of a thing to do, but it would give us all a clearer indication of where those balloons were, because we were in the dark. I saw balloons, but I didn't know what they were for. I had no clue. So, that meant nothing to me, but now it would mean something to me. So if you guys told us how much it would cost, so we have an idea instead of hiding everything under a carpet, and then potentially did do the balloons, then we would all know and be alerted of it. And then we could do that study without you having to trespass or having you to worry about liability and so on. So I think that it's a little bit ridiculous that we didn't know about this, but I understand how business works and how planning works. You want the least resistance possible. But it would be nice to know when that's going to happen and be able to take our pictures from our own property and submit them.
So if I may, this has been a very open process, and I do think that we've done quite a bit of effort here with respect to making sure that both boards and the public are participatory in the process, and we haven't tried to hide anything or think that public opposition is a problem. We actually think that public oppositions build better projects. So please don't. What I'm trying to do is trying to understand the mistrust for the drone footage versus the idea that somehow you saw if you've seen shots from other types of photos, they take them through trees, they take them through at corners, they take them in various areas. We literally took the time to try to search out where residents were visible. We weren't trying to not find residents that were visible. We took the time and effort to search them out.
Can I suggest something, if I might?
But please let me finish.
I'm sorry.
And so when I start to talk about the idea of where we think we should do visualizations from, it's because we've searched out those areas, and we now know those areas where we originally did not schedule photos, where there should be photos taken from, and we should start to think about visualizations. And all I'm asking for, quite frankly, is some confirmation that the areas that I'm talking about is what's on the board's concern, rather than a general idea that essentially every property on Church Road and every property on Stay Road is of the board's concern. And if that's the case, then tell me that.
Board?
I can only speak for myself. My concern is the pictures that you showed from the drone, houses on Church Road that could probably see the tower. I think that a balloon test would be very helpful to let the people on Stay Road and the people on Church Road and any other people that might live in that area, so that they could see it with the leaves off and have an idea whether or not they will be able to see the tower. All you need is to do one balloon test, and we'll notify.
So the key to that is if that's what the board is pushing me towards.
Well, I'm just speaking. We haven't spoken as a board. I'm one person on the board.
So if you head in that direction, the only thing I would say is it's important for us to know where you want the pictures taken from. And the reason for that is that taking our own pictures, knowing the focal length of the camera, all of those things are important in terms of doing visual simulations. So it's not like every homeowner can take a picture and send it to us and we can do visual simulations off of. So if that's where we're headed, then we should know the locations. We should know that where we're going to take those pictures from, and we should set this up and schedule. That doesn't preclude homeowners from taking pictures. It just says that we want to take our own pictures, mainly because when you do that, you need to understand various things in order for us to make sure that the visual simulations are correct. So that's the first piece of that. The second piece of that is, with the exception at the end of Church Road and the exception at the end of Stay Road, where there's no structures, the board should have, given the visual simulations that we've done, a sense of what the impact is here. I mean, we're not going to find lesser impacts in these areas, and we're going to find magnitudes of impact that are similar, particularly with respect to the ones that are down towards Route 32.
I think you're correct. This is Patty again. I think you're correct, and I have a sense of what the impact is going to be. I'm not sure people who might not yet know about the project have an idea of what's going on. And I don't know. haven't seen anybody from Stay Road that's been on this call. So I don't know whether or not, I don't know. I just think a balloon test that is well publicized, not just putting in an ad, but we'll do what we did for the last one that we did, is we actually did a letter to the editor and put notice about the balloon test in, because people will read letters to the editor. We put it on Lighthouse TV. We did things that, this is not for your project, but for another project. We went over and above to let people know about it. And I think the more people who know about it will make your life easier in the long run, and it will give more people an opportunity to know about the project and be able to know what's going on. Because I think one of the things we've heard about is that when this was before the planning board, people didn't know. I'm on the zoning board. I didn't know about it. And so it was with planning board, and people did not know that it was happening. And as Bill mentioned, not everybody reads the legal notices. So I just think the more we can involve the community, Dennis, the better for all of us in the long run. And they're obviously asking for another balloon test with the leaves off. And I think that would be a good thing to do personally as one member of the zoning board. That's my feeling.
Might I add something? Thank you, Patty. And kind of back to my initial question, on Monroe, item number 5, it says alternate locations for the facility. I know that's outside of what we're talking about right now, but again, to my, sorry, I'm a layperson, but these things should have been kind of said, we looked at 3 locations. Okay, these 2 locations were eliminated because of, none of that has been shared with us as a community, so that we know that there's no other place on the planet other than right in back of our homes that this will serve, our volunteer, fire company, so their house doesn't burn down. I mean, it's getting very emotional, but my point is, if these things, as they happen, get rolled out again, I don't know what it'll take to make it so that we don't have to go to the local paper to find out about these things. Maybe that's a new law, but there's got to be better ways of communicating to the community when things are going to happen, so that we're, again, we didn't know anything about a public hearing until the public hearing closed. That's a fact. Sorry. And also my neighbor, Alan, who only lives a stone throw from my property, never got a letter because there's a 10-foot road between my property and Alan's property, but my property happens to be 500 feet adjacent to the tower. But my neighbor, Alan, never got a letter because he's 10 feet, on the other side of the road. I mean, this is like crazy stuff. I mean, he's closer to the tower than I am, and I get a letter. I'm just putting this out before the board so that this is a learning process, and also that we can build trust amongst all the people involved, and I'll just end it here. For me, it's not about the drones or taking pictures. I want to hear about alternate locations. I want to hear why the Mount Marion Tower is not whatever. I'm waiting for responses on those areas personally.
And Bill, I agree with you about the alternatives. I was waiting until after the public hearing. I had some specific questions about Mount Airy Road that I wanted to talk about, but I know it's getting very late and we may have to not do it tonight. But I agree with you. And one of the main criteria the ZBA has to consider is in those decisions is the alternatives. And there might not be any alternatives, but we can't just say, well, there are no. We have to have a basis for that as a board, because it's our document and we have to document the alternatives. And so there needs to be work done on that. And I certainly have questions. And so I totally agree with you on that and others who mentioned that.
Thank you.
And this is Joe. I agree as well. I tried to make that point earlier, I guess unsuccessfully, but I like to see what alternate sites are available and what will they provide.
Thank you, Joe. That was Joe Mayone calling in on the telephone. Joe is also a zoning board member. We have heard nothing from Tim Scott this evening. Tim, do you have anything you would like to say?
Well, I would agree that I would like to see some work done on the alternate sites. But as far as the current proposed site, obviously we would like to see another balloon test. At the end of the day, with this particular site, if there are no other alternative sites that seem viable or proven to not be viable anyway, I think there's a lot of issues out there about vanity. I mean, at the end of the day, are we going to put that over public service? I don't think so. I would hope people wouldn't do a ton of that anyway. But that's really all I had to say there.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on the board?
Dennis, can you get the zoning board a copy of the survey of this property?
I think I provided this. I provided the site plan, which has the survey on it, but I certainly can give you the survey of the property itself if that's what you're asking. I think it's included up as part of the site plan.
Okay, I think the survey would be helpful if we had a copy of that.
I think that was probably the planning board. That part of the problem here, for everyone's information, is that this project started out before the planning board, which is another appointed volunteer board, very hardworking, of the town. They have certain things that they do. The zoning board has certain things we do. I'm sorry. Am I echoing?
A little, yes.
So Patty, I think if you go out on the project website, I think the site plan and work that was in the one slide that was shown tonight is there, and it has the survey, the boundaries on it. Does that help you?
What I would really like is a hard copy of the survey with the tower on the current location of the tower marked on the survey. And that way we can review that and we can look at some of the things that were mentioned about perhaps in another location, just so that we could discuss it with you, but we don't have that. So that would be helpful if we had a copy of the survey. Just one would be fine, and then we can duplicate it.
Okay, and then I'd send that to Kevin?
Kevin, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I make a request to Mr. Doyle? This is Bill Harrison. Mr. Doyle, this is the second time I saw the presentation, and I know you've invested a lot of work into the mappings and everything, and the drones are definitely much better in the second presentation to give us some assessment. But what I would say, again, as a layperson, never having flown over this area, I had to ask my wife, what is he looking at? I mean, I couldn't sort of, the first presentation was a Google topology, which meant nothing to me. I don't think meant anything to a lot of us that weren't engineers. And tonight's presentation, although much better, thank you for the drone. It would have helped me to kind of see if you had like a marker and said, okay, we're looking from the tip of the tower and with a marker saying, here's Church Road, here's Stay Road. You can't see them because they're under the trees. And I guess that's to your point, okay, that we don't see our houses, if you will. But as a presentation, at least for us to get some bearing as to what you're presenting, because I was lost in the presentation. I didn't know where the roads were or really what I was looking at. And maybe I'm alone in that, but I just want to share that with you.
You are not alone, Bill. I had difficulty with this also, especially because I had no point of reference. There was no, this is where the tower is. This is where Stay Road is. This is where Church Road is. Perhaps even what do they call them? Compass roses? So we would know which direction we were looking at. That might be helpful. But I would prefer not more drone flights, although they look fascinating. I would prefer, and I think if no one else on the zoning board has anything to say, I would ask for a motion. First of all, regarding keeping the public hearing open until January.
I second.
Oh, I just made the motion? Fine. Patty seconded. I'm going to take a roll call because Henry is right in front of me. Henry?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Yes from Joe. And Tim?
Yes.
It is passed. Our public hearing will be continued into 2021, folks, January 7th. Now, what would we like from Ulster County for this public hearing? Will someone make a motion as to what you would like them to provide us? Patty has already asked for a survey, which
marked with the tower,
which Mr. Doyle says is probably already on the website, right, for the site?
I asked for a hard copy of it to be sent.
Good. Marked with where the tower is located. I would request a stake that is more than 14 inches high, that can be seen from the road and perhaps is marked with some kind of bright tape so that people who are driving past it on the public road, the town road that goes right up to, and I checked with our superintendent of highways, it is a public road all the way up to the gate of the Rod and Gun Club. And we should not have to drive into the driveway on the county property to see it, but we do now, unless the stake is higher. So that's my request. Now, I will take a motion from someone on the zoning board.
Gene, before you do, I'd like to see a statement of what potential alternate sites are available and statements of why they should or should not be considered.
I will second that, Tim.
Joe.
Patty?
Yes.
Tim is asking for a statement of alternate sites.
Oh, that's Joe.
Oh, Joe, I'm sorry. Joe made these. Okay. I second you, Joe. Patty said yes. Tim?
Yes.
Henry?
Yes.
Okay. And I vote yes. Is that okay, Mr. Doyle?
Actually, one of the things I think is important to note is that the alternative site locations under the balance of public interest test is related to a less restrictive zoning district. So it's alternate locations in a less restrictive zoning district that the ZBA is charged with looking at. We've had this discussion about where this facility would be allowed in less restrictive zoning districts.
Yeah.
So, forcing me to do an alternate site location is not something that is a charge of the Zoning Board of Appeals under the balance of public interest test. We're willing to have a discussion of where else we looked, but we're not willing to have essentially an exhaustive discussion of all the other places in the community where essentially the tower could be put.
I think that is quite reasonable. I don't believe anybody is asking, oh, sorry, for you to do an exhaustive search of, as Mr. Harrison said, anywhere else in the universe. But the fact that you have looked at alternate sites, I noticed you had mentioned Sheer Road. And you also had mentioned Mount Airy. Perhaps a definitive statement as to why these were not suitable for you would be satisfactory. Is that agreeable?
It is to me. It's Joe.
I'm fine with that.
Tim? Henry?
Fine with me.
I have no problem with that. But I want to make a statement though, just so everyone understands.
Yes.
And we've been through a bunch of these things as far as, who wants it, who doesn't want it. And given sitting where Dennis is sitting, no matter where he picks, we're going to have the same discussion from just a different group of people. And we have to be complete naive to the fact that would not happen. So let's try to make do and try to make the best of what we have to work with. And I started with Dennis from the very beginning. Mr. Harkavy alluded to it, and I think a couple other ones alluded to it. The thing that really catches and what the drone does nothing to me, except that it's a beautiful view of the countryside.
I'm sorry, I got to laugh. I'm sorry, because for me, from a technology standpoint, I mean, the idea that you can actually go up on an actual tower site and look around and see what you can see is twice as informative, quite frankly, than a balloon test. And I can go down and I can look down and I can see into individual properties. I can see into and I'm sorry, and I appreciate where you're coming from, Henry, but I have to chuckle because I take the exact opposite view, and I apologize for that.
We've been thinking the complete opposite.
And I agree with Henry. It does nothing for me.
Let me just explain this to you. It's not me talking. You heard Mr. Harkavy, you heard Mr. Bryan, you heard Mr. Harrison, you heard a number of people. They're all residents that are opposing you. And I said to you, do yourself a favor. From the very first statement I said to you, the only thing that was realistic that people can relate to was the simulation. To see what that tower looked like from their property. If you couldn't get that through your head, that's what'll sell this thing, well, then I'm laughing at you.
I'm sorry, Henry.
Because now we're back to the same thing that you and I have argued for years.
I think I've got the message.
You're a dreamer. You have to make it work, Dennis.
Okay.
All right. We need one more motion. Do we wish to request a well-advertised balloon test. Again, which with the understanding that it is very difficult to do a balloon test in the winter. Strong winds can interfere. Any kind of precipitation can interfere, and we know that. We've been there, done that. We would have to, if we decided this, there would have to be a choice of times, sometime on this date or as soon thereafter as weather permits. Because you never know, even in the spring, before leaves are on, you can never know. We have done them before, and we've had to leave some space. But what is the will of the board, first of all?
I would agree with that. This is Patty.
You want to make that motion, Patty?
I make a motion that we ask the county, Dennis Doyle and the county, to do another balloon test on the site and set it for a date with what Jeannie said, due to weather conditions, the earliest time after that date, so that people know that there might be a leeway of several days or a week. Ensure that the time is in there, and send out the legal notices, and then we'll also see other things to let people know.
So can I, if I may, before the board votes, is there a sense that you would let me essentially do 2 locations using the drone technology that we have to essentially be able to do a simulation from the end of Church Road and from the end of Stay Road, so that you get a sense of what those impacts are before we do another balloon test? And I'm more than willing to do a balloon test if you know, if having looked at those simulations, the board still believes that the site is viable. But I don't want to find myself doing a balloon test and somebody basically says, when we look at these simulations, we don't believe this site is viable. Will meet the balance of public interest test. The other thing I would say is that I believe that the earliest I can conduct a balloon test is probably in February, March, just so you know.
Today would have been a perfect day.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I just, it's government and contract amendments and budgeting and stuff like that, and you can appreciate the process that has to go through in order for that to happen.
I understand, and you also have to notify the public in time.
Yeah, that's the least of the issues here.
I know, that is the essence of the issue.
I don't, but in timing, from a timing perspective.
Dennis, you did a simulation of by Church Road that everybody looked at today. And that doesn't really help the other neighbors know whether or not they can see it from their house. So that's not going to help. They're going to need to see from their own house whether or not they will be able to see this tower. And I don't see how the simulation, that one simulation, is going to change anything.
Well, I mean, I don't disagree with you, Patty, but what I would say is that it gives you the worst case scenario in terms of visibility. The visibility, I'm confident that our drone work that we've done, that when we try to do simulations from these other locations, we're going to have minimal impacts. But I'm not confident about what the impact is at the end of Stay Road versus the end of Church Road in terms of the board's concern about those locations.
I mean, it can't hurt to do that, but I mean, then, so in other words, you'd say you would have those simulations for us by the next meeting, and at that time.
I can't promise that because again, flying drones requires some effort as well. But I would certainly try to do that. And then with that, you could make a decision in terms of whether you wanted and I can set up the idea that we may have to do another balloon test and set up the budgeting for it, so that we can get that done if that's what the board.
Yeah, I don't want to
That's
do
the
this.
final board's decision.
I personally don't want to do this in place of that balloon test so that people can see for themselves.
I hear you. All right, then that's fine. That's fine.
You would do the simulations in front of the.
Well, if the board wants to have the balloon test done, then we'll just set up and do them. The only thing I would ask the board to consider is that given the magnitude of impacts that you're currently looking at, if there's a sense of the board that you're really having doubts about the location, then please let us know that that's the case, and then we'll plan accordingly.
I'm not clear what you mean, Mr. Doyle.
Well, the magnitude of impacts are fairly clear given the visualizations that we've done, and for me, the magnitudes of impact are clear with respect to what the drone footages show, even if the board is uncomfortable with them. The concern I have is that that we're going to see on a balloon flight, we're not likely to see additional impacts in and around Church Road or the beginning of Stay Road, but we are going to see significant impacts associated with, or different impacts associated with, the end of Church Road and the end of Stay Road. I'm fairly confident that that's the case. And I'll just leave it at that. But if the board wants another balloon test, I'm more than willing to essentially say that we'll do one.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Patty to ask for another balloon test.
Specific
Is there a second?
Right.
Oops, sorry. Go ahead.
That's it. That's it. No more from me.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
A second from Tim. Henry? A balloon test? Yes or no?
I don't see the relative of the whole thing. I mean, I understand where Patty's coming from, but in all due respect for everyone involved, unless the notifications are there and people can see it themselves, the surrounding property owners, you're wasting a lot of time, effort by Dennis and by the public and by the board. So it has to be very clear when it's going to happen, so that then there's no excuses when people come in front of, well, gee, I didn't know it was that. I didn't see the balloons. I didn't. So that being said, yes, I would agree as long as it was publicized.
Adequately publicized. Okay.
Correct.
Joe?
And I agree with Henry.
Is that a yes or a no?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And I vote yes also, in full agreement that it must be adequately publicized in advance, with the understanding that this is weather permitting.
Right.
Certainly.
Of course.
Yes. And also we're going to ask Mr. Harrison to tell us what the best way to get information, besides asking the assessor to put it in with your tax bill, which doesn't work.
And we don't have a budget to mail all these letters.
No,
I know.
He is very cooperative, but he won't do that for us.
I would say seriously, I've learned a lot in this process. I never went to the zoning board site prior to this, even though I've been here for 35 years. I never felt that I was compelled to. Why I'm saying that is that we've, and Alan knows this, Mike knows this, we've passed around flyers to our neighbors. I don't know how encompassing that is. And the point being, I think many of us prior to this really didn't know where to look. I would say now that we're familiar this meeting in particular. We're going to look to the zoning board website for postings. Okay. And I will personally, I think we've all learned that we have another way of communicating that maybe we weren't aware of. So I would say certainly post it. If there's 3 alternative dates, post all 3. And then, we're certainly patient here in Quarryville. We will ask God for good weather, and I think that would suffice.
Okay. I would rather like a motion to that effect, but I think that's not appropriate. So, Mr. Doyle, you said you think the earliest you could do another balloon test probably is February or March?
You're muted, Dennis.
Dennis, you're muted.
Yeah, I think so. I'll have a conversation with my consultants about this, but I'm going to need contractual amendments in order for that to occur.
Okay. And I don't want to hurt your feelings, but to me, the drone tests are very pretty pictures. Sort of like flying in an airplane over land I don't know.
So,
with no markers, there was nothing to tell me where the tower would be.
So just do me a favor, all right? I'm going to ask the board for a favor, all right? And it has nothing to do with the project.
Don't ask me to look at that movie again.
It has nothing to do with the project. I think I sent links to some of the board members of the drone photos in terms of their resolution. I would just ask you to pick a location that open one of those photos up. They're very large files. They're 10 or 12 megabyte files, and just zoom in on those photos and just see how clear you can see down into whatever you're looking at. And then just keep that in mind as a technology that, people have embraced to do a lot of different things, whether it's roof inspections or whether it's real estate sales, et cetera. And think about this as a technology that the planning board and the zoning board of appeals can use when it starts to ask questions about what's the character of the neighborhood. Real estate people have got this down. They go up and they fly the site. They look around and they say, that's what you're going to be living in. And understand how that can inform boards. You're not comfortable with it with respect to analysis as it relates to view shed, but there are other things that these kinds of things can do. And I can tell you the other thing that happens now with respect to the technology. I can actually go up and with a drone, fly the site, and give you 2-foot contour lines all over the site without ever having a surveyor set foot on the land. And so we're using it for visual simulations. We're using it for actual cut and fill discussions, et cetera. I ask you to keep an open mind on the technology. I get the fact where you're coming from with respect to view shed analysis, and we'll go ahead and do what we have to do to make the board comfortable. But just do me a favor and keep that open mind, because the technology is going nowhere but better with respect to this kinds of things.
Oh, that's so scary to me.
It shouldn't be.
You don't know how scary that is to me.
No, it's not scary to me. I just think that it could be done more effectively, frankly. If there had been a marker that said this is where the tower would be, it would give us a point of reference for everything else, and I perhaps would have appreciated the drone flight better. I'm not sure that the movie that you sent of the drone flight would not have made me airsick, which it did. But I'm probably not going to be a fan of drone flights either.
Okay.
But we'll send them to you, folks, if you want to see them.
Put them on the website. Put them on the ZBA.
Right, we'll put them on the ZBA page.
And you can all look at them. Kevin,
can-
Very large files. We have them in a Dropbox, and I can email you links to the Dropbox so that you can see the individual photos, but they're,
And the
they're
movie.
very large files.
And the movie, but take your Dramamine.
okay. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes,
for being-
thank you so much. Dennis, I've been thinking about this. We voted to keep the public hearing open.
Yeah.
I'm not sure there's much sense in scheduling you to come back in January if you will not be able to do, that you will not be able to do the balloon test before then.
So let me ask this
We still
question.
have alternatives to talk about.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That the question with respect to, we can certainly give you something in terms of what we've looked at.
Okay.
And the other thing is I don't want to lose touch with the board. I think it's important for us to make sure that.
Oh, we're not going anywhere.
There you go. But I certainly want to give the board an update in terms of where we are.
Jeannie?
Yes.
I think what, in terms of continuing the process, Dennis has agreed to do the balloon test. That's, we know, is in the future. But I think what would be helpful to the board at the next time around is the evaluation or the discussion about a couple of alternatives that were mentioned.
Yes.
Yes.
And 2 or 3 simulations based on the drone flights that you could look at now, which are basically, I think you want to look at the worst case scenarios or close to it, the 2 or 3 that he mentioned. You could do those now. The balloon test is serving a different purpose. It's giving more people an opportunity at more times to take a look at where that might be seen from. But you're not going to, I think it's unreasonable to ask for many more simulations.
I don't think we need them.
So I think that's, as I said, what you could be having on the next agenda is the alternatives, the simulations from the 2 points that were mentioned, and anything else that might be relevant. But those 2 things would move things along.
Mr. Doyle, what think you?
You're muted, Dennis.
I'm sorry.
I want to thank the board. I know that these kinds of things are difficult decisions to make, and I also want to thank the public, regardless of what members of the public are certainly entitled to their own opinions. We were not trying in any way, shape, or form to sort of sneak something in or ram something down somebody's throat. We certainly welcome an open public discourse, as evidenced by the fact we are basically in our 3rd or 4th public meeting relative to this project, and likely to have some more.
Second here. We start over again with the zoning board. This is only the 2nd. Sorry.
Is he muted again?
Yes.
Dennis, you're muted.
Yeah, I wasn't saying anything.
Oh, okay. Okay, so then.
That's one way.
We'll see all members of the public back. Again, just to the person who asked that question about how will she know what we decide, all our meetings are public meetings. We don't do anything in secret. We always do all of our decisions in public, and then there's written documentation. So just to alleviate any kind of fear you have that somehow a decision is going to be made that you're not going to know about, if you come to the meeting, you'll hear it personally. So just clear that one up.
Patty, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
And even if you don't come to the meeting, our minutes are on the zoning board page of the town website.
Can I ask that, Kevin? I don't know if you saved the chat comments, do you? Kevin?
No, the chat is not saved as part of the public record.
I've been reading it all along.
I know, but
It's
I
good.
would hope that the ZBA members have seen all the chat comments. I think it's important to be part of the record. Excuse me.
Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't work like Zoom. I'm just seeing if there's a capacity to even copy. Oh, there is. I can do Control A and paste it in a text document, so
Okay.
it can be
Thank you.
saved. Yeah.
Thank you.
And thanks for the comments, everybody. It's helpful.
Thank you.
Need a motion, Gene?
Well, we have to just approve some minutes. We have some
We have
business.
to, yes. So everyone is welcome to stay or not. We need to approve the minutes from the October meeting, which are on the zoning board page under draft form. Anyone, a motion?
Are you and I the only ones still left here?
Oh, Tim
I
is
see
here.
Tim,
Okay.
Oh, is
Holly.
here.
Henry.
Henry made the motion.
Henry's chair.
Henry's chair made the motion.
I'm here. I've been
Okay.
here.
Does someone make the motion to approve the minutes? I assume you have all received them and read them.
Yes.
I'll make the motion to accept.
Thank you, Tim. A second.
Second.
Henry second. Patty.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
And Jeannie, yes. They are unanimously approved.
Okay.
Now, Henry, motion to adjourn.
Yes. Let's do it, Gene.
Okay, I made the motion. You seconded, Patty?
Second it, yes.
Whatever. Tim
Yes.
and Joe?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
We
glad
are
you-
adjourned. And
I'm glad
thank
you
you
I'm
all
glad you
for
held it to 2 hours, Gene.
Good night, all.
I tried. I tried.
Good night.
Good night, and thank you.
All right, everyone.
Stay safe. Mask up.
You too. Happy holiday.
Have a
Yep,
happy
you
holiday.
too.
Yes. Happy holiday, everyone. I did write to Mr. Doyle and told him I didn't want the meeting longer than 2 or 2.5 hours.
Yeah, well, that didn't work.